Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's City of Morro Bay Tourism Improvement District Advisory Board meeting. The time now is about 9:02, and I'd like to welcome our board and our visitors today, as well as our city staff. Thank you all for being here. We are going to establish a quorum, call to order. We have Taylor Newton, Sean Green, myself, Charlie Yates. We have Maggie Jurin and Stephen Allen. Ken Clark is absent. And first order of business, are there any board announcements? Seeing none, we'll keep on moving. Any staff announcements?
I have no announcements. I would like to ask the board to move item B5 to be presented after B2.
Noted.
Thank you.
Any further staff comments? Seeing none, we're going to move on to public comment period.
Good morning. I'm Janice Peters, resident of Morro Bay and also a member of By the Sea Productions. You have in front of you the flyer for our current show, which is this weekend only. It's a staged reading of Kalamazoo about a couple of 70-somethings whose kids have told them they need to get out there and date again after they lost their spouses. And I play one of them, although I'm obviously much too young for that, but it is acting. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's very sweet. It's very funny. Their computer match is not what they asked for, and they end up finding something in common anyway. So that's this weekend, and we have another show starting in May called Love Alone, and we have our summer mystery farce, The Murder Room, coming up, all of which appeals to not just our residents, but our visitors, which is why I'm here. We definitely are getting visitors coming to our shows, and we take our flyers around to our hotels, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen them, and the visitors are picking them up, and they are coming. So it gives them something else to do if they've already seen the movie at the Bay. On that second night in town, they can go to a play, which is kind of fun. On that topic also, I looked at your budget in item B2, what you have collected in your tax collections, and I moved here 30 years ago, and one of the first things I heard was from the manager of the Inn at Morro Bay that they desperately needed a conference center, someplace where you could house 400 to 500 people during the week, during the off-season, medical conventions, teachers' conventions, industry conventions. Convention, I say, but it's a conference. It's not 1,000 people. 500 seemed to be the magic number that these conferences look for, and we still don't have any place in this town that can accommodate that number. So we're missing out on all that off-season, midweek revenue that we could be getting, and our hotels and motels, I think, would benefit. There's an argument, oh no, you have to have the conference center in the facility. No, you don't. Not when you're Morro Bay. We're a small town. You can walk almost anywhere from our hotels to a potential conference center. Think Bank America, Flippo skating rink, I've heard may be back on the market. We have facilities, we have buildings there that just need to be renovated to make them work for this use, and it's a use we desperately need. This is where our major income comes from now, is tourism. And if we could bring that tourism in off-season during the week so that it's a constant revenue source, it would help our coffers a lot, I think. So I'm telling all of you because you're the ones that could maybe make that happen. I tried for, how long was I on the council? 14 years. Didn't happen. I would like to see it happen. Grover Beach is now building a conference center, so we're going to lose some more to them. This is something we could do. I hope you will consider it, and please all come to the play this weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janice. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. First up, A1, want to find out, and we've all had the chance to review the minutes of actually a few board meetings. Are there any corrections or edits to any of the minutes?
On the February minutes, I had wished to discuss as a future item increase of staffing. I wanted to add a full-time position. I wanted to discuss that or something. I looked at it as a future item. I'm going to be bringing it up every meeting. I just think that we're understaffed in this department for the city, and I think the city puts so much pressure, as well as the public puts so much pressure on. I think it's something we need to discuss, and I'm going to bring it up every meeting. So I had thought that was a future item. I don't see that on there. And secondly, the date right here, March 20th, of this being today, actually today is the 19th, the 4/20 holiday is tomorrow, and today's the 19th, so that's incorrect. Right, March, right, it says the meeting adjourned at 10:39 a.m. The next regular meeting will be held on Thursday, March 20th, 2018. Today is Thursday, March 19th. Oh, my bad. April. Then that would be my incorrection. Maybe I was just using an opportunity to talk about the 420.
And mine is more a question, and to your point, Taylor, in the March 15th, they did capture the fact that you'd like to discuss more full-time staff, but, and maybe you brought it up in February as well, so.
Yeah, I was looking at the February one as
Yeah.
March, so that would be me incorrect.
Yeah, but that said,
Still talking
my
about that.
question is, we see those, I don't necessarily see those track. I'll see people suggest future items, and then I don't necessarily see them show up as future items. So I don't know, it's more a question to you as to how you guys track that and make that happen. Is that appropriate to even talk about here, or is that?
Yeah, we can talk about it real
Okay.
briefly.
Okay.
As far as future items, I do track them, Maggie.
Okay.
As far as the staffing, it's not a simple task that changes over. It would be an FTE city position, so it has to go through certain parameters. It has to be approved by city council. So that's why it has not come back as quickly as we would like. But we do recognize that we've been talking about it.
Yeah, and I wasn't referring specifically to that, just that as I go back and review minutes, I see future items, and I think, oh yeah, we did say we wanted to talk about that, and yet a lot of them I don't see show up again, so just more a comment.
Well, that's one of the things that I like about Taylor is that he remembers and brings things up that are on these things. And it's really, we have all these great things, and I think that it's also up to us to bring them back to the board and go and bring them back to staff too. So I think we need to take a look at what's been hanging and bring it back, the things that are important. One of the things that I wanted to review in here, as along with Taylor, is the compensation and benefits for the tourism team. I'm not sure how much privilege we have to that information, but it's public knowledge. I'm just curious. I want to make sure that we're taking care of our tourism team the way that the city's taking care of all the other people.
That would probably be better to talk about when we get into the annual report and actually the line items of the budget.
Thank you.
I have some comments on the stakeholders meeting minutes. I think there's a contradiction. It says that Steve was both absent and present. So I can't remember if he was there or not at that stakeholders meeting.
I think this is on. I was not.
Okay.
But we also brought that up last meeting too. So.
Okay.
Yeah. I was here. Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
it's all a blur
So
after a while.
The minutes that I'm looking at say on March 1st that he was not here, so we would just correct that to say that he was here. Am I looking at the wrong thing?
Yeah, I see Aaron is the one who looked at that.
Item, Roman numeral 1, establishment quorum, call to order. Members Allen and Graves were absent. Give credit to the people that are here. Also, was there an agenda for that meeting? I have a minor issue that I brought up before, that we're seemingly presenting these minutes as if it was a regular board meeting, when in reality we were really just, us board members were just an audience learning everything for the first time, just like everyone else. And so I don't know, I have a little bit of an issue with these appearing as the minutes as if we were active participants in what was really more of a performance on this particular meeting. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. And I did want to add that in Roman numeral 6, during Scott Collins' words, Scott Graham actually came up and spoke. That I think that's relevant right before Maggie's comments, and so maybe mentioned Scott Graham from Community Development, and that Maggie asked, and I didn't speak, I asked a question of Scott Graham to clarify the vacation rental policy. That's it.
You want me to make a motion to approve what is 3 records of minutes, right? It's 3 different documents. I make a motion to approve all 3 minutes after with the corrections that have been stated, retracting mine since I was wrong.
Public comment? Public comment? Public comment on the minutes?
Public comment? Come on up, Joan.
Sorry, Charlie. Good morning. My name is Joan Solu, and I'm a resident of Morro Bay, and I'd like to thank you for all the hard work you do. I appreciate you actually combing through the minutes like that. I've been to several of these meetings, and I've seen kind of the minutes routinely approved, so I'm glad that we're really combing through them. One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention is your future agenda items. I was actually looking for an issue that showed up in one of your previous meetings. And I went back to research that issue on the website this past week. And your minutes were not on the website from October moving forward into this year. So I made a quick notation to the city, to Dana over at the city, and she got them up like that. So that was excellent. That was great response. It was like, whoops, bang, and they were up. But researching the issue I was looking for, I looked back through all the minutes and I was reading them. And there's several times in there where either the public makes comment or where you make comment as an individual on the board, where you say that you want to see something come back as a future agenda item so you can either A, further understand it, B, get a consensus built in the community about it, or C, just get movement, unlock whatever it is that you're discussing and get it moving forward so you can see results, right? But what happens is then at the end of the meeting where I saw declaration of future agenda items, you weren't actually going back and declaring that. So when I was on the board, the way we handled that, and Taylor, you might remember this, is at the end of the meeting, whoever was chairing the meeting would turn to Lori, the then Lori, whoever it was, Bridget or whoever, and say to the city clerk, can you please give me a list of possible future agenda items? Every time we said, I'd like to see that as a future agenda item, we'd say, can you list that, please, as a possible future agenda item? We would build consensus and say, okay, that one needs to come back within the next 3 months. That one can come back in the next 6 months. And then it would be tracked through the city clerk, and it would always appear at the bottom of the agenda, and we would know what the rolling future agenda items are. Super important for you to be able to have that housekeeping on there. So I just wanted to give you that as a possible solution to your future agenda items. It tracks it for everyone, for Jennifer, for the city manager, for city council, and for you. You're not going to get the work done if you don't see it laid out in front of you. Thank you.
But Joan, before you go, real quick, a question to you, again, based on your previous experience. As you would go through those, did you ever, like I look at some of the topics that get brought up, and what I think is, how does it get concluded? Like let's take Taylor's suggestion of more full-time staff as a future item. I think how that would look going forward if you wanted to discuss that and us having input on it would be we'd have to define those, what roles, what additional things need to be done, et cetera, et cetera. My question is, how did you guys handle, did things ever actually drop off, or would you finally get to those items and conclude them in some satisfactory way?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the last sentence.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Thank you.
I have a motion to approve the 3 minutes, and thank you for public comment. Appreciate that. Really great suggestions. Really appreciate it.
Do you need a second, Charlie? So I second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Business items. What do you have for us?
We have, our first item is B1, which is presentations from 2 grant awardees. First one is Winter Bird Festival, and Chris Cameron is here to give us the overview of how it went.
Thanks for being here, Chris.
You're welcome, Charlie. And I have also brought Michelle Roost, and the two of us are the co-chairs of the Winter Bird Festival. The 2017-18 Winter Bird Festival was really good. We had 578 attendees, and I have a more detailed report that all of you will get. It was presented to Jennifer, and she will pass it out a little bit later. With all those people, we collect zip codes so we can track where they come from, and over 70% of the people came from further than 50 miles away, many of them much further. Some came from Canada and many, many states. And then we had about 30% locals. When we calculate how many room nights there were, since this is a weekend event on a holiday weekend, many of the people stay for 2, 3, or even 4 nights. So when we calculated those nights, we only used the people that have traveled for over 100 miles. And the estimate of those people were over 200 people times 3 nights, so that gives us 600 room nights. In addition to room nights, we also have done quick little calculations of meals, because it starts with a Thursday night early registration. So if you count all the meals from all the participants, it's 6,358 meals are eaten during that weekend. Again, some of those might be locals, but if you're a local here in Morro Bay or Los Osos and you're going to a couple of morning sessions and then an afternoon session, then an evening speaker, you probably aren't going home to make a lunch or a dinner. You're probably going out. So even the locals are eating out. And if you did go home to make yourself a sandwich, you probably bought the groceries at Albertsons or Cookie Crock or Sunshine Health Foods anyway. So even local money is being spent here for this event. We appreciate the grant that was given by the Tourism Board, and most of that was spent in advertising, and a large chunk of that was spent in renting the facilities to hold the event. So that's essentially it for my report. I'm open for any questions or comments. If you're giving out tourism money, we're taking it because we are spending it well and bringing lots of tourism business. Any staff that we hire are hired here in Morro Bay. Any vendors that we are using, like AGP, the money is coming here. It's local money. It's being spent here. We buy our T-shirts here, which is hundreds of T-shirts. So with local silk screeners, we do all of our printing here. And if we have any extra money left over, the profit that we give is given to Morro Coast Audubon and Central Coast State Parks Association. So that is money that is even helping our nonprofits here and Pacific Wildlife Care. So if we run in the black, we give the money away here. So the money that's generated, and it's a lot of money that's generated, not just our registrations, but all the money that's spent in tourism and meals and hotels is staying here. So we consider this a very beneficial tourism event on one of those dark winter weekends in January where we all need the business. Any questions?
I had a quick question.
Yes.
Just educate me. What nonprofit or nonprofits are behind the coordination of the Winter Bird Festival?
Yeah, let me give you a quick history, Taylor. It was started by the city of Morro Bay saying, we need some event here in a dark winter weekend. How can we get more tourism? So it was stimulated by the city of Morro Bay, went to the Morro Coast Audubon Society, and the Morro Coast Audubon Society said, yes, we can get something together. They work with state parks, they work with Pacific Wildlife Care, they work with several other nonprofits like that. that to put on a bird festival. People who do bird watching spend money to go see the birds, and in the winter, this is an ideal place to do bird watching. Because of the migration patterns, this is a great place for a lot of birds to park in the winter, so great birds are seen here. It's always one of the top 5 or 10 birding places in the entire United States for the winter bird count. Morro Bay is always way in the top there, sometimes the top 2 or 3. And so people who know birds and want to see birds come here, and it's supported by the city, of course, but it's also supported by the nonprofits like Morro Coast Audubon Society, Pacific Wildlife Care, and the State Parks Association. Any other questions?
Chris, fantastic job. You're not only providing a service for the community, but you're helping the hoteliers on an off-season holiday weekend that we're competing with the ski slopes.
Yes.
For guests. I've seen successful bird festivals in other counties, other areas, even larger. How can we grow your event from 578 people, I believe?
Yes. That was actually low. The other years were a little bit higher. This year, remember, we have the Big Sur slide, and we were right in the middle of the big flu season. So flu and the Big Sur slide took out some visitors. Growing larger is a good question. Janice Peters earlier recommended a place for 500 people for a conference. We need a place. If we're going to have 500 or 600 people, and we're paying thousands of dollars for a keynote speaker who people nationwide would want to come in here and speak, we need a place for that. So right now, we're using the Vets Hall, we're using Shoreline Calvary Chapel. We had to use we've used the Morro Bay High in the past, but because of their construction, we haven't been able to do that for a couple years. This year we had to go to Los Osos, to the South Bay Community Center. So if there was a place for 500 or 600 people, that would be helpful. But there is a question: how large can it get? The festival is all about seeing birds. And to see birds, you have to have expert bird leaders. And there's only so many expert bird leaders, and all of them are volunteers. None of them are paid. So there's only so many expert bird leaders in the area. At present, we have about 150 workshops, lectures, and field trips on that weekend. I don't know if that sinks into you, but that was 150 workshops, field trips, and lectures in one weekend, and those are all staffed by volunteers. So if it was going to get larger, we would have to have a larger number of expert bird leaders, and that means we would have to get them from outside and pay them to come in. That would be a little change of our festival, since it's always been a volunteer-led festival. No one is paid that runs this festival except a part-time registrar and a part-time coordinator. Everybody else is volunteer. Michelle and I are volunteers. The entire board, who meets all year round to plan this event, are volunteers. Every one of the bird leaders is a volunteer. So it's a volunteer thing. To get more people, we'd have to get more leaders, and then we'd have to pay them.
Has there been discussion with the hoteliers about cooperating with giving rooms for these bird leaders?
We do have some deals. Charlie Yates at the inn has helped us with some of our expenses for some bird leaders, so we try to reduce expenses for some of the expert bird leaders that come in from out of town, especially the keynote speakers.
I'd be happy to volunteer rooms for your next event, too. So
great. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Appreciate that. Writing your name down right now. What other questions do you have?
I have a question. If future T-bids, this is kind of going off of the amphitheater or conference center idea, if future T-bids were written such that some money could be used for temporary tenting, staging, seating, equipment, so that it could be available for things like By the Sea Productions or other nonprofits and event coordinators, what types of things would be in that ballpark that you could potentially use for a weekend?
The things that help us reduce our costs is good cooperation with city staff, city buildings. The more the city helps us with the access to facilities, buildings, and janitorial services and the things that are required to have 600 people in a building for a weekend. Those are the things that are most helpful. Yes, we have to either rent or borrow or buy tables and chairs. Even in the conference center this year, we had to bring in many tables. So yeah, if there were more tables, if there were more chairs, if there were better Wi-Fi, because sometimes we do lectures that are involved in technology. So good access to Wi-Fi, those things are important. Michelle, do you have anything to add?
I did want to add a couple things. Thank you. It's very exciting to be here. First of all, I have a long history with Morro Bay and with birding. My father, Arian Roost, started the Morro Coast Audubon Society, the local chapter, back in 1964. He was the co-founder and first president. So I've been birding all my life. I started and just to give you some basic outline, at Christmas time, the entire country participates in the National Audubon Christmas Bird Count. And the reason they do that is that winter, December and January, are peak times for migrating birds to come to their wintering spots. And Morro Bay is a wintering spot for thousands and thousands, actually millions of birds, I would say, and more than 200 different species. And they stay over through Christmas, through the New Year, into January, maybe even February, before they head on to their breeding grounds. So that's what makes Morro Bay such a special place for birding in the wintertime. It's not just a good birding spot, it's one of the best birding spots in the United States in the winter. So building upon that with the Winter Bird Festival and encouraging tourism, what I'm also impressed by with the festival, because I'm fairly new to this level of the organization, I've been leading field trips for almost 20 years, but now I'm on the board, is that they also wanted to make this a very high-class bird festival. So they bring in world experts, world-class level experts for those evening speaking engagements. And our capacity fills. Sean, you were asking about what would a conference center do. Our capacity for the 2 evening speakers, we have one for Saturday night and one for Sunday night, are over to about 250. And that's actually about the capacity of the facilities that we're able to use. We could probably fill a bigger capacity because people will come a long way. And people are here for the whole weekend. They're going out on field trips every day. So providing them with evening entertainment that's relevant to their interest is also really important. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
So Michelle and I are co-chairs of the Bird Festival this year, and next year Michelle will be the chairman as I will be taking other responsibilities. So you will see her face again. We also prepared a detailed report, some evaluations of the trip from participants, and I also gave you a very detailed financial reporting. So if you want to know exactly how much money is coming in and how much is going out and where it's going, that will be in the report that Jennifer will pass out to you later. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support of the Morro Bay Winter Bird Festival.
I have a quick question for you guys
Yes,
as well,
thank you,
really
Jennifer.
fast. So I know the state of California employs a large group of wildlife biologists, and their main priority is to track raptors, northern spotted owls, and how their nesting is. Is there any opportunity to partner with them to help bring in additional wildlife biologists? I know that they work very closely with private timber companies, and one of those is a local company, is Hearst Family. They have a large amount of timberland, and they work very closely with State of California wildlife biologists. So maybe there's an opportunity to help you grow that base of biologists if you need more.
Thank you. We already do use fish and wildlife biologists, especially in some of our Carrizo Plain trips. So this is the center, but we go all over the place from this center to see birds. So thank you for that, Jennifer. I appreciate it. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to thank you for providing the world with one of the most best quality birding events that I've ever attended or been to, and I did the bird count. I just think it's just an amazing thing. Birding is such a clean tourism. They don't, they come in and they spend money and they're not taking things other than memories and pictures. and then sharing those. So I just want to thank you again and know that you've got my support.
You're welcome. And hoteliers, high-quality binoculars in the rooms on that weekend, some bird books in your little gift store. Those are things that might help. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks again. Now we're going to move on to our TOT report. B2?
Well, first of all, I don't see our second presenter here, unfortunately, so we will skip that. Do we need to do public comment in between?
Oh, wait, she's here?
Oh, Kara?
She's hiding over there. Hey,
That's
thanks
not,
for coming.
That's not Kara from the high school.
That's not.
No, this is public comment.
Public comment, come on.
Okay, so I was thinking if we could, we're talking about a conference hall, if we could maybe talk with the movie theater owners to maybe use that space. That has a lot of seats. It's a very large, and they only do 2 movies a day, I think, during the weekend. So if we could, during the Bird Festival, sometime fit a speaker in there during their off time, we could probably work out a deal with them, or they might let us use it for free if that's possible. And the next thing is Lost Serena Inn does have binoculars, and we do our bird books in the rooms. They left. I was going to say if we could have more, just more information. If they would be willing to pass it out, that would be great. I mean, as hotels, we love to pass that stuff out, and if we could create something with them, maybe introducing the Parks and Rec department for the Bird Festival and getting them to interact, just make it more kid-friendly. I know we have the Natural History Museum we use, but if we could do something that interacts with Tidelands Park that's down there, maybe we could get more families involved with this. That's it.
Joan Solu, public comment regarding the need for additional meeting space. The city doesn't have to go build a $20 million conference hall. I suggest that the city purchase a $10,000 clear tent, put the clear tent with heaters on the South T Pier, and you'll have the best venue ever that's rentable space for weddings and conferences and blah, 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 and da-da-da, and proms and mariachi groups and vodka and cigar conference or whatever it is. Sunset, South T Pier, clear tent. Everybody shut your eyes and look at it. I know you can see it. $10,000, invest in the tent, save $20 million. It's a temporary solution, but I guarantee you, you will sell it over and over and over again.
Can I make comment on that? Yeah, when I used to work with, when the Guerrilla Gardening Club used to work with Sunset Savor the Coaster every year, the Got You Covered worked with that group to accommodate their tent needs, and they had just such a wide variety of tents that they rented to them. And I think one good point that I learned was that it's not just the cost of a tent, it's also the setup and takedown of the tent and the insurance on a tent. One of the things I realized when I worked with that group was that they actually purchased tents for that event with a promise of using that tent into the future. So, like Savor Central Coast wanted to have a bigger tent, so Got You Covered actually purchased a tent, planning on using it for the next 4 years at Savor Central Coast. In response to Joan's idea, that's a great idea, and if you were to work with a company like Got You Covered to have a tent that accommodated what you wanted, you really have a variety of options, and then they would basically be in charge of all the ramifications of that tent use instead of the city like owning a tent, where to store it, who's going to set it up. I mean, we still have a forklift to put our signs up on our lampposts. We don't even have a lift. So I'm just saying, like, there's other options, but that idea is a great idea.
Well, this is just, it's not on the agenda, so I was going to bring it up in future agenda items, but just a comprehensive package of rentable inventory that we can talk about towards the end of the meeting briefly, and then maybe agendize it.
Interesting idea, Joan. Tents are always a great way to go, and I know that we've used them at other places. We've used them in Cambria, we use them in Avila Beach. Again, it is the setup, tear down, the insurance, the wear and tear on it. And again, the idea intrigues me about possibly, rec department, get it, buy it, rent it out to private groups, public groups. Could be a great start, great way to go.
And it would really have to be managed. I mean, if you're going to go to the expense of a tent, you have to have somebody actively booking it, which, just to back up, we don't have that for all of our parks right now. So you guys are talking about a subject that's outside of T-bid, but it's a very big task.
And I know that, renting, like Got You Covered or Taylor, or the guys that do the tents, they're extremely expensive for a 1-day or 2-day rental. And so, because they cost a lot of money, but also it's the setup, tear down, and the insurance of these things. You've got to be safe and right, so. Interesting.
I've got a quick question. Taylor, maybe you have the most experience. The structural integrity of these things, are they designed to go up and down, or can they withstand wind and weather conditions?
Yeah, so with my experience with them, because I work with them at Avila Beach Golf Resort also, and they have such a variety of tents, and the different tents are set up for the venue site and for the weather and for how long it's going to be up. So like, say for the Central Coast, I mean, that build would be a week, 2 weeks ahead of time. When we do Best Buddies up at Hearst Ranch, you're seeing build going out 3 weeks ahead of time. So you're looking at it being up for a long time. And part of what I like about that is that it's all on them. So if something goes wrong or insurance possibility, all that stuff, it's on them as the contractor. Also, in relation to the cost, if you work with a contractor such as that and you plan for multiple events a year or multiple years of a single event, you're going to see discounts. And that's the way to approach it. If you call them up with a short notice and say, I want this tent for a single day event, and I've seen that before, like when I do celebrity wedding kind of stuff, where it's like, we want this now, your price just skyrockets. You're looking at that difference between, for like my contract alone, like cost of $1,000 days to I'm charging $8,000 in a day. I mean, that's the difference of not planning ahead, not having return business, not having discussion such as that. But as far as tents go, like, you can get anything you want.
So let's put this on a future agenda, because we're getting kind of off our topic. I think it's a really good thing for us to keep noodling through, and there's really good points that we need to talk about, okay?
Very good. Now we're moving on.
Okay.
You're up.
So TOT report. So this is the February TOT report, and as you can see, February did pretty well for us. Our RevPAR was $58, over $45 for last year. ADR was up to $106 versus $96 last year, and the occupancy was 55%, over 47% last year. March is also trending up, and I think that's primarily because spring break was in March, so you have to be prepared that April will probably be down because it does not have spring break in it. But February I'm very happy with the numbers and how it turned out. Any questions on the TOT report?
Yeah, and again, I look at the, market factors over here, and I was pleasantly surprised too. And as I look across the county, everybody did really good. And I think it was somewhat weather related. Any other thoughts you have on why it jumped up so much?
So remember January we had Santa Barbara. It was pretty dramatic, and I think you probably had people that postponed and they came up in February.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons why also the Bird Festival was down about, I think they were short 50 attendance, which we talked about at our last TOT.
Can I ask you a quick question about, is this the appropriate time to ask about paid advertising stats? Or is that next?
That'll be in Shannon's presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
One last thing is, in all these statistics, as I was looking at our budget for next year, and it always continues to be a goal of ours, is to increase midweek stays. Do you guys have any way of breaking down and tracking that separately from weekend, or you're just looking at total day count on your occupancy.
So what I don't see is your hotel numbers day by day. So you guys
Got it.
submit the end of the month report. I don't see a daily breakdown,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Okay.
I can get on Star and get, Star reports for each week, but Star is just not really good for our market. It's not a good representation of Morro
Yeah,
Bay.
right, because everybody.
Yeah.
And is that because hotels don't want to give that information?
It's just how it's set up that the city has them send in at the end of the month, their numbers.
So it seems like that if increasing midweek stays is really a concern of hotels, that they may be willing to provide that information voluntarily outside of the city system, perhaps? I don't know.
Perhaps, and also I think when we get our new website up, there's different tracking that we'll run through, and hopefully that'll help as well. I think one of the other issues that we have is there's several hotels that don't actively work through Jackrabbit. I think there's 7 of them in our market, so our tracking is not, really exact, unfortunately.
Tracking can only get better with our new website. And we're looking forward to that. Okay, we're going to be moving B5. A public comment, thank you.
Good morning, Joan Solu. I would remind you very quickly that when you look at the report that's produced, the secondary report, which is this one, this is the actual official report. This is the secondary report that's produced. The secondary report uses STAR. And STAR is very, very inaccurate because it is not like this report where you have a 100% of hotels reporting and we hope 100% of vacation rentals reporting and 100% of campgrounds reporting. So when you compare this to that, you're comparing tangerines to pineapples. You're not even in the whole apple to orange relationship yet. So I would just remind you about that. And then I would also say to you, remember that when Highway 1 was closed with the Bird Festival, that impacted the Bird Festival because Highway 1 was closed during open, closed. It was so iffy. People didn't come. So next year their numbers should be up because hopefully, heaven forbid, we ever have a tragedy like that again in California. So that, affects your TOT. In regard to Sean's question about wouldn't the hoteliers be willing to report day by day? No. It's a lot of extra work. I mean, to be quite frank with you, we have the most rigorous TOT report in the entire county. Out of all the municipalities and the counties, SlowCal has been collected all of the TOT reports for the entire county a while ago and was looking at the Morro Bay model to get better reporting countywide for them. And here we've talked for 10 years about getting better reporting here so that we know how this mechanism is working. The only difference I would suggest that the city make on the reporting is that they break out Friday and Saturday. So you could report Friday and Saturday separately, Friday and Saturday separately, Friday and Saturday separately, and just block the Sunday through Thursday all the way through. That would give you a really good idea of how much impact you were making midweek, Sunday through Thursday. So the only thing I would suggest to you, if you want to add a little bit more work, is to break out Friday and Saturday. But that, to me, sounds like a future agenda item. Thank you.
And just to clarify on this report, so the box up here is from STAR. This is all our competitive set. That's all we can get on our competitive set. Our physical numbers are our true numbers, but I figure it's better to have something on the other competitive set versus nothing. So STAR it is.
In comment to that, which is in comment to her, so these little yellow, blue, pink are our actual numbers from the real report, which you talked about, correct?
Correct.
So our actual occupancy rate for 2018 was 55%, March.
Correct.
February. So in response to that, couldn't you just add the Morro Bay STAR report numbers to the monthly summary, because then you would have both, right? Because you don't, so like here it says monthly February comparison. Morro Bay's not in that.
Right, we physically took them out because we don't report well on STAR. Our numbers track 1 to 2.5% down always on STAR. So I physically take them out and use our actuals.
Right, but if I'm looking at a comparison, I want to compare pineapples to pineapples. So why not include the Morro Bay one in that one? I mean, if it's available,
I
why
can do that.
not give me the data?
So I can do that on the top, and then we'll keep the yellow, blue, and red with our actuals. That's
more
not a problem
data.
at all.
I mean, more data doesn't hurt anybody except for people that don't want the truth.
That's fine with me.
And you can just add an asterisk or something to clarify that there's a margin of error, but isn't there the same margin everywhere else?
Not necessarily, because a lot of these cities have large big box hotels. Paso Robles has a lot of chains. We don't. And most of the chains are what report to STAR. Best Westerns, like Stephen has. I mean, in our community, we have about 50% of our rooms report, which is not a lot of our hotels. Do you report, Charlie, to STAR?
We report daily.
So in at Morro Bay, way swings it. That's 100 rooms out of our 900 total rooms. And we're talking about only 50% of our total room count reports. So, but I have no problem adding it in at all.
We also incentivize our staff based on STAR reporting.
Nice.
And I noticed there was a drop in room count between last year and this year. What is that attributed to?
That was the landing had rooms down for upgrades.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Any further comment? Any further public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on now to B5.
Good morning. My name's Shannon McAllister, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator. B5, we are hoping to reallocate costs to cover the permit fees for the Kite Festival, and currently the cost to secure a permit is $978, and the event coordinator, Terry Baez, requested the city to discount or comp this fee, which the city denied and said that they only do this in special circumstances where the city is in a formal partnership with the event. So originally we had allocated $5,000 to mental marketing to utilize for the festival, and currently there are some unused funds, and we are hoping to reallocate those funds to cover the $978 permit fee.
Where are the unused funds coming from?
It's out of the $5,000 that was allocated to mental marketing for promoting the event that they just have not done yet.
So we're discussing using marketing dollars for funding of a permit. So in relation to what TBIT is about, does that contradict our policy of using hoteliers' money, basically? Or no, wait, this money is coming from the city, or does it come from the assessment?
This is general funds.
So then we're totally okay with using it for wherever we want?
Correct.
Okay.
And we have done this with other events, Charlie. When this came in, we didn't have an event planner scheduled yet, so that's why it wasn't included in our grant last year.
Yeah, I just wanted to make, one of the things that I was taught in joining TBIT years ago was that marketing dollars from assessment need to go to marketing. And we oftentimes get that confused in city council, public opinion. Everybody confuses what the dollars are. And that's why it's important to look at the contract that the hoteliers have essentially with the city.
Why wouldn't an event that is a week and a half away have used marketing dollars up?
So this has been sitting on my desk for a week and a half, just so you know. Waiting to come to this meeting is why it hasn't been used. So it's been sitting with the intention of hopefully moving those dollars over.
Could you remind me the dates of the Kite Festival?
26, 27, 28. 2 weeks away. And they've rented a tent from Got You Covered.
Yeah, and I also wanted to just remind everybody that Kite Festival every year, for as long as I've been on this board, is one of the events in the city that is such a family-oriented event and oftentimes seems understaffed and undersupported. And so much potential. I mean, I've heard Joan talk about the possibilities of what kites are as far as events and the pull for different communities. And this event, every year, it seems like we under-support it.
I'm just happy that this year we've actually supported it more with, hiring an event planner, putting the grant towards it. Next year, we will manage the entire event. And so I think that the future of this event is pretty bright.
This is a year of transition. We have an event planner in place. We've put it under a 501c, which before it was money given direct to a business in town. So coming into the city, we're trying to make sure our money is allocated correctly and used correctly.
Are you looking for a motion to reappropriate
I am,
this money?
please.
Can I make a motion to use $978 from the unused amount to go to cover this permit?
Do we need to have public comment before we make a motion, actually? I'm sorry, Stephen, to interrupt.
Public comment, come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina. I would like to say I would really like to see us to advertise it. I think of the Strawberry Festival that's in Arroyo Grande every year, and I see it on TV, or I feel like everybody knows about it. For me, I was participating in Relay for Life 5 Cities, and that was at Dinosaur Caves Park, so I took one of the kite posters with me, and a lot of people came up and said, oh yeah, I forgot about that event. So I feel like it was a great opportunity for me to kind of talk with people about Morro Bay, kind of remind them about the Kite Festival, and it would be nice if we could kind of branch out from just talking about it here in town.
Hi, Joan Solu. Support the $978 in spending. You cannot advertise an event that you won't have, and you need to pay the permit fee to have the event. It's unfortunate that it's been sitting for a week and a half on Jennifer's desk, and just getting to you now, great question, Sean. There should be some kind of flexibility to make these things happen quicker. For events like this, it's tough to see them held up at the last minute like this. And I mean flexibility also with city staff in terms of possibly city staff saying, look, we know this isn't a long-standing 5-year or 20-year or 2-year event, and we think it's going to be successful, and we're willing to step forward and give you, pay it 30 days on the backside or something with these events. There needs to be some kind of adjustment in that policy. It shouldn't be so set in stone that we can't get these things done. And I look to you for that because you're all smiling. So I think that, in order for our community to be a success, we have to have these kinds of events. This kite flying event is unbelievable. The best advertising for this event is to take Sean on the road. When we have a trade show booth or any of that, I don't know if you know this, but Sean Farmer from Farmers Kites and Surreys, formerly Farmers Kites, something else, it's Bayside Kites and Surreys or something like that. Now, he could fly a kite in this room right now with no wind. He could fly it right over your heads, and I've seen him do it. And we used to take him on the road with us, and we'd take him to Savor, and he'd fly kites inside of the tent, and the second his kites went up and he started flying, our booth was jamming. We couldn't have enough volunteers in there to get the information out to people to get to Morro Bay. So your best advertising sometimes is the people in our community. And, especially for this event, your biggest place that you should advertise for this event actually is with your communities in the San Fernando Valley and in the Bay Area that have concentrated Far Eastern and Middle Eastern communities. You will see a huge draw to this event from those populations. In the Middle East, Sunday afternoon, every park in the Middle East is packed with kite flyers. So I would suggest that those would be your markets. Thank you.
Now can I second?
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Do we have discussion? Which department was it that denied the permit waiver?
It was me. We don't have a policy that allows for reduction in fees, so it would be kind of capricious for the city manager to decide who gets a reduction in fees and who doesn't without a policy to guide those decisions. City Council has requested and directed staff during the 2018 goal setting, objective setting for the year to bring back a revision of the partnership policy. We currently only have 2 participants in that, the Kite Festival and the radio station. So we have to look how that can be branched out further and create parameters and the kinds of things that Joan was talking about, just some flexibility built in. But we have to have a parameter, otherwise it's completely capricious, and I don't feel comfortable making those decisions.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Why I bring it up is that it seems that there's an opportunity for every department in the city of Morro Bay to more seriously take tourism into consideration with its decision making, whether that's Parks and Rec, whether that's Public Works abandoning an undergrounding project, whether it's Planning Commission allowing certain waterfront businesses to keep a gate closed instead of open. So I think that there's an opportunity in a future agenda item for us to brainstorm as a T-bid, even something as simple as a well-written one-page letter to other departments to say, look, this is important and what you're doing is currently hurting tourism. So that's something that I'd like to later bring up.
I have a motion and a second. I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes, and we're going to move on. Okay, Shannon, B3, you're up.
All right, so I'd like to share some press clips from March. We had a lot of good press coverage that month from many different media platforms, which is really exciting and doesn't always happen. And one of the first stories we got was from Visit California, and it was published on their online publication, and it was titled San Luis Obispo County Beach Towns. And Morro Bay had the heading photo there with our iconic rock in the background and the beautiful bay. And that's the paragraph that was accompanied with it, just a little blurb about the town meant to spark some interest and hopefully inspire people to research a little bit more and maybe visit morrobay.org. And this story got over 15,000 coverage views, and this publication gets over 5 million monthly visits. HGTV came to Morro Bay last month and actually filmed an episode of their TV show called Beachfront Bargain Hunt, and the episode's titled California Dreamin' in Morro Bay. It's going to air on May 3rd at 10:30 a.m. if you would like to tune in. It's going to showcase a lot of visual components of the town, which is really exciting, and it's going to hopefully get an estimated 41,000 coverage views, and this TV station gets over 22 million monthly viewers. So when we had all of those terrible storms last month in our neighboring cities, as well as our own, Mental Marketing pushed out a press release that listed all of the special deals that our hoteliers offered to the storm evacuees. And pubclub.com picked that story up and published it, and it listed all of the different offers with hyperlinks back to each hotel's landing page, so guests could easily find out more information about the deal or the hotel if they would like to and take advantage of it. And this story had over 4,000 views, and this publication gets over 50,000 monthly visits. Some coverage stats from our press. We had over 280 million online readers exposed to Morro Bay in March from our press coverage, and we had 31 links back to morrobay.org from this coverage, and these stories were shared over 3,000 times on social media. Future items, we are planning a midweek promotion in June, and we're going to be looking to hoteliers to offer specials for that, and we'll have more specific information about what we're looking for in terms of those deals in a future date. And we have a lot of exciting upcoming events leading up to our busy summer months. The Miracle Miles for Kids is happening this weekend. It's a great fundraising event on the beach. And then the following weekend, we have our amazing Kite Festival, and I've been working diligently to keep that website up to date and really attractive for all of our visitors. And then the first weekend of May, we've got the Cruise in Morro Bay Car Show. Thursday through Sunday, this is a 4-day event, and we're really trying to push traffic to come earlier in the week and people to stay all week long and kind of enjoy the town before it gets really buzzing during the weekend. And all the classic cars show up earlier in the week as well, so it's kind of just an exciting time to be here. And then we also have our Art in the Park events that happen 3 times a year, and this one is going to happen Memorial Day weekend, May 26th through 28th, right before the start of the summer season. Do you have any questions?
I had a question.
Yes.
On the paid advertising stats, you have media cost of $20,136 for that month, and you have a total conversions of 107,000, which is one of the 3 largest for the year. Can you just give me a little bit of explanation on that? I mean, that sounds like a good thing. I mean, compared to like February, your media cost was almost 15,000, so that's $5,000 difference, and you have almost an $80,000 difference in 80,000 count difference in conversions. The conversions is the goal, correct?
That's correct. It's strictly seasonal. It has to do with pushing people to try to travel in January. February is just difficult. You know, it's cold and wet and rainy and nobody wants to come. And March, again, had spring break. So that's another reason why you're seeing March numbers push up, which is unusual. I mean, have spring break in March is really unusual. Yeah.
I'm just curious, the show on HGTV about discounts on the coast, is that about thrift shops, or is it?
Go ahead.
It's about finding real estate, actually, houses and that are for a good deal along the waterfront or beach town. So, not exactly thrift shopping.
I'm definitely anxious to see that because I want to see if they found that home for $355,000.
Any public comment? Come on. Come on up.
Hey, hi again. Okay, I'm Christina. My question for January, February, we had talked about you thinking about doing something with the whales. Have you considered that still?
So our marketing plan for the year is set. That would be on a future go forward.
Okay. Because I have, we're partnered with Subsea Tours for our 3 hotels in town, and we called it a whaling good time. So we would offer a deal, an all-inclusive package, where a guest could purchase 2 adult tickets and go out there and, you know, look for the whales. It would be really nice if we did focus on something like that for January, February. So we did another festival, like the Bird Festival. We'll do something with the whales.
Something to keep in mind is we have to find a nonprofit that's willing to step up and start an event. And as we know, Morro Bay is a little challenged with how many volunteers we have. And this year we actually had quite a few new events that we brought in and have helped grow. So, but I really want to see something for January, February strong, either a whale festival I think would be a good thing, or we've talked about the Butterfly Grove might be a possibility. So it's definitely hot on my key.
So for that would the most applicable nonprofit be the Marine Mammal Center, right?
Say that again, Taylor?
The most applicable nonprofit that you would just, so like if the Winter Bird Festival is Pacific Wildlife Care and the Audubon Society, then a whaling thing in January, February would be Marine Mammal Center, and that would be the direction we would go in?
Marine Mammal would be good, Women Fisheries would be good, Friends of the Harbor Department, Central Coast Aquarium. Central Coast Aquarium, I mean, all great ideas. So we just have to find that partnership. It's a pretty big undertaking.
Hi, Joan Solu. One of the things that I think we could do to kind of spread the love out in January and February is to work with the Winter Bird Festival to move to a weekend other than President's Day weekend. Previously, because that's a 3-day weekend and hoteliers, you're already going to be impacted and people are already going to come to the coast. And you probably recognize this, or when you talk to your staff at the front desk, you recognize that they're getting the call for, do you have rooms this weekend? And they're saying no that weekend. So you still have space there where you either the event pushes you to have overflow, or whether just because it's a 3-day weekend, you're going to have overflow and sell out. The reason why I say that to you is because the Bird Festival started about 20 years ago when John and I first arrived in Morro Bay, and it was not on President's Day weekend. And that was, because of them, was one of the first weekends that we started to get to like an 80% occupancy in January, right? Like, whoa, wow. Yeah, and really get some folks into the restaurants, causing the restaurants not to close for 2 weeks in January. The restaurants close sometimes for a week in January to do deep cleaning. They need to do that every year. So, but to move that off of President's Day weekend and have that tourism exposure for 2 weekends in the winter would be huge. Economic impact for the city of Morro Bay, and would be great economic impact for the businesses in Morro Bay, and therefore would be a great economic impact for the residents of Morro Bay to get things done, like the fire department and those kinds of things. So, thank you.
My only comment on that is that the unmeasurable thing is, do they get more participants because it is a 3-day weekend for people?
It's Martin Luther
and
King
why did they
weekend.
move it?
Yeah.
So I think that, I think your idea, the concept is good, because I agree.
But they've been sold out for like the last 10 years, not being on that weekend.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think that's a good suggestion.
Any further public comment?
Christina Schullers. And my question, well, not so much of a question, but I'm realizing that the Whale Festival will be a huge undertaking because it's a brand new event. However, I remember talking to a lady who runs a Sea Otter Week. I don't know if we've ever done a festival with that. Maybe they're already established, because she said they visit the schools and they do a Sea Otter Week with the children. So maybe if we kind of incorporated that, it's something that's already well established, and kind of made it something that the whole community can celebrate, and then we incorporate the whales somehow without having to make new ideas from it.
Like
I think
a marine mammal week.
Yeah, a Marine Mammal Week. I think that would be great. We could try something like that, and then just maybe create a map or something for the guests. That would probably help.
Morro Bay's Marine Mammal Week, MMM.
Is that what it currently is?
No, I just made that up.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. All right, we're going to move on to a B4, very important topic today. This is the consideration of Morro Bay Tourism Business Improvement District, the annual report, and the continuation of the TBID assessment. The recommendation of the TBID board is to review and approve the fiscal year of 2018-2019 annual report for the expenditure of funds to be derived from the annual assessment, and to recommend the city continue the 3% TBID assessment for fiscal year 18-19.
Thank you, Charlie. So I'm going to go through this. One of the odd things that I kind of had a hard time putting this together was the fact that we're in the middle of an agency review, and whether we continue with our current agency or bring a new agency in, I think making permanent decisions for the next fiscal year without involving them is not really great for us. I mean, we're looking for their expertise on how do we grow and how do we change to take that next step up. So this is a rough draft. This is not the final draft of the annual report. And I would just encourage you to be aware that once we have approved and council has approved a new agency, that they might add or change our goals as well as we go through these right now. Okay? So,
Jennifer, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just in the way the recommendation is stated. Okay, so again, my understanding of this TBID is that, we're under, the 1989 or 87 rules, where without 51% protest coming forward, that it continues. It's a given. So why would we be recommending that the 3%? To me, it's almost a given that that's happening. Or when would that protest have to have happened in order for this to not move forward?
So it does have to be renewed every year because we are on the one-year renewal.
Okay.
So you do have to recommend approval of this annual report that goes to City Council, and they will have to renew it for a year.
Okay. But again, to answer my question regarding the regulations of that at what point would 51% of the people would they have had to come forward to protest?
Yeah, at the City Council meeting.
At the City Council meeting that'll happen in June? So
Yes.
we would recommend it, but if for some reason 51% people came out, went on the final approval and protested it?
That's right. That's considered a public hearing at the City Council meeting.
Got it. Okay.
And then the 51% is the 51% of the hotel rooms. So like Charlie's, for example, he represents 100 rooms of 900 rooms, right?
Right.
So his vote means more.
Correct.
So, no?
Well, it's the income
money?
too. It's the revenue, which still weighs him higher. You're correct.
So it
you're
weighs
still
more because
correct,
he has
yeah.
more rooms, so he's potentially making more money.
Correct.
Got it. Continuing on, at this time, I had something that I want to keep on bringing up. One of my biggest concerns with TBID is that the current TBID form, compared to what I was originally part of, it's more political in my experience than it was formally. It was much more business-like the way we had it set up before. It was, if you want me to give an explanation, I can. But now it's much more. Formally it felt like the board directed staff. It was like our staff, and now it's much more like it's city staff, and we advise the staff or we respond to the staff, which is good in some ways and bad in some ways. And one of the ways it's bad is I feel like it takes more time for the staff. And that's a good thing because the city public and everybody gets to be more involved, perhaps. I feel like there's two really good reasons that we're talking about that city staff needs to have more staff. In the past, we have lost our accessory staff to the director. So we've trained people, had them make all these hospitality connections, and then once they're like running top speed, they get a job somewhere else, and we lose them. And then we have to do it all over again, which is bad. And I feel like we need better staff in this department. I think that part of our annual report is we need to have at least another full-time staff supporting Jennifer. I feel like the entire city is dependent upon the tourism department for the future of Morro Bay and us having the money we need. The growth of this city is dependent upon it. The direction of the city is dependent upon it. And so many requests come in from us and from the public on top of staff's duties, reporting, review, all this stuff, that she needs more staff. So at this point, I'm going to look at you, Jennifer, like what are the ramifications of us adding Shannon's position as full-time? Can this be appropriate time for you to respond to me on this?
Did you want to give the full presentation, or do you want to?
Yeah, I think when we get into maybe the budget segment, that might be.
You want me to do this again at the budget?
But we can.
No.
I can take it right now.
I mean, I can do my whole spiel anytime you want me to. It's only going to get better every time I do.
I just have a feeling we'll continue on this train for a while based on where we're at. But I'm happy to answer your question now and maybe move on.
Sure.
Okay. So right now we have 2 part-time staff in TBID plus Jen's full-time position. In order to make one of those positions full-time, it immediately adds about $30,000 or more because they become PERSable and they get full benefits, et cetera. That doesn't include probably a wage increase, which would come with that position. So right there, you're talking about $40,000. So that's $40,000 that otherwise would have been spent on marketing dollars or some other efforts that you have to find a way to reduce. So that's kind of the basic impact of adding a staff member. I've been here about 5 months and responsible for the entire organization, including the tourism department. So just beginning to understand things a little bit. Still very cloudy, and this discussion is something Jen and I have had numerous times, and I don't feel like I have the appropriate level of information and detail to be able to make a recommendation about staffing in this department or others. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So that's just my immediate feedback, but happy to engage more, either right now or further down.
So in response to your response, so previously I worked with Sam and then Ikani, we're both assistant city managers, which was a pricey position for the city, and we no longer have an assistant city manager, which was your direction, correct?
It was a necessity to balance our budget.
Well, I agree with you on it, but that did, how many dollars was that?
About $150,000.
$150,000?
Yeah.
So my point that I'm making is that you obviously can make decisions that save us a ton of money, and I'm asking for us to make a decision that's going to make us a lot of money.
That's speculative. I know what it'll cost us. Okay.
My job's very speculative.
Scott, is this the appropriate time of the year to bring up the very popular topic of including vacation rentals and looking at the overall assessment?
I guess it is. I know that's challenging because I think one of your members would have to, if there's a discussion on this item, if this becomes a topic, would have to recuse themselves, and they're down to 4 folks again, and we're kind of back to where we were in December when we couldn't get anywhere. So
I would give a recommendation that we kind of split this up as we go. We have to have the annual report approved to move forward. That's key to keep TBID going. So that has to be done no matter what. If we want to talk about other things on top of that, we can do that. And then if it is vacation rentals that you want to talk about and Sean has to step down, then we still have 4 members to vote on it. But I would actively say we should talk about the annual report part of it and get that approved before we dive into other aspects of it.
I appreciate that, but just to clarify, in previous meetings, we were told we couldn't discuss it until a certain time. So if we miss it now, is it gone for
in reality, you're sorry, we're taking time with this, but we requested a continuance of this item and you didn't approve that. So it went into a black hole. And now it's residing essentially nowhere. And council has asked for a discussion on TBID, the broad spectrum of issues for tourism, whether it's effective or not is a city thing or elsewhere, and how we've been doing, and just a whole host of things they want analysis back from staff. And this is one of those issues because we didn't get a recommendation from this board in front of us. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers your point. It's just kind of in a vague state. So again, if you want to have that discussion today, I would follow what Jen Little said, and just let's take the TBID annual report as one item and then have this other discussion. Because if you decide that you want to add a VR RVs into this discussion, you would have to do it as a separate process, where you'd have to go through an ordinance revision, and then you would amend the annual report mid-year, if that makes sense. Because you need all the time to do the first reading, second reading, 30 days for it to become codified. So you kind of have to go on parallel track. That's why we're suggesting, if you want to take this on today, that you have one item you really deal with, the annual report, and then a second discussion.
So you can do 2. You can make 2 recommendations.
Right, so we could finish discussing the review of the fiscal year 2018 annual report, approve or not, whatever we decide to do, and then also discuss adding BRBs as a second motion, perhaps.
Correct.
Yeah.
So-
Can we? Because it wasn't pre-announced, it wasn't on the
Well,
agenda.
So you can, if you read, sorry,
Go
Scott.
ahead.
So the Morro Bay Municipal Code, if you read it, how it's outlined, it says that at this point, any proposed changes in the boundaries of the parking and business improvement area or the benefit zone can be done at this time. That doesn't mean it's going to go through, Maggie. This is strictly a recommendation, and like Scott said, it would not go for July 1.
So I could make a motion for us to approve the fiscal year 2018 annual report, and then we could have a discussion about having businesses part of the bid, or we could discuss, I could do anything.
And it would be kind of in the general second discussion where you talk about this generally, saying as a rider basically to the annual report as direction to staff to take this to council.
Because essentially what we're doing is making an advisement or a suggestion to city council is what we're doing. Because city council is really the one that's going to make the decision to continue the assessment or to add something to it. We're just voices.
That's right. And the way you're not violating the Brown Act if it's connected to the annual report. But again, we do need a recommendation on the annual report today to be able to take it forward to council. And in that, you can have a second motion that says, we would like council to consider X, Y, and Z with VRs in relation to the annual report that would need to then be amended mid-year.
So do you guys want to do more discussion of the annual report, or I could make a motion right now?
So I read the part where you said that you broke out some of the digital media, you've broken out the categories, right. So then I was trying to compare apples to apples on it, and if I looked at the 2017-18, there was like promotion and advertising. I was trying to do a comparison between what was allocated last year and what was is being allocated this year. And I see that you've made some really good adjustments in that you've gone, where your actuals didn't reflect what you'd allocated last year. You've gone down in many cases to your actuals from this year. Does that make sense? So that was good. But when I look at, now I'm talking about the 2018-19 budget, I see promotions and advertising, digital media, 270, out of home, 40, blah, blah, blah. When I add all those up, that comes to 338,000. And, if I count in the promotion and advertising, that's 8K, versus we had 245 for promotion and advertising. I'm just trying to figure out if I am comparing the right figures, because if so, that makes it look like we went, we've allocated quite a bit more. Did that make my question make sense?
It totally does, Maggie. I have allocated more money for digital media. So the challenge that we were having internally was we were taking the old categories from the 501c and trying to apply them to existing codes in the city, and they just didn't match. So Jen Calloway and I sat down and really broke them out this year, where before, who did the budget last year was trying to put them in something that kind of fit, but really it wasn't correct from an advertising marketing side. It was really not effective for me. And so you had agency fees mixed in with those as well, and breaking them out into specific categories, it allowed me to apply specific dollars, and it's much cleaner. So now when I get the bill for mental marketing, I can put a direct to digital media, and I can clearly track how much we're spending on that, which I'm thrilled about. I mean, it's definitely going to be better. And I did, if you want to go through each category, I can kind of show you what's in those different categories. I have slides that I broke out, and I can go through all those with you guys if you want.
And just to understand why that's a significant jump in that amount, and maybe that'll be explained. And that's just my opinion, but I would like to understand that better. And some other questions. Some of the amounts went down, like your promotional media from last year.
They really did not go down. They just got distributed into different categories.
Okay.
Our total budget is going up, and one of the things you need to remember is that the T-bid budget rolls. It's not a flat dollar amount that we have. It's based on the revenue that we bring in from hotels.
And you can only
And so it kind of
project.
moves.
Yeah.
So this is a projection, and if you look under the draft annual report, the projected amount is $948,000 for this next year, and that's $819 made up from T-bid assessments, plus, oh wait, I have the wrong year. Sorry, hold on, let me grab the right year. It's $997 total, which is $836 from T-bid assessments, $157, which is the general fund contribution, plus the $4,000 that we estimate bringing in for advertising buys on our guide. Okay, so that's why the numbers have gone up, which is a good thing. We want more money, especially in our digital spend. To me, we've been very light in what we're purchasing, and we need to grow that, so that's a good thing. And I'd really like to go through each category and kind of show you how I've broken them out. If you guys okay if I do that? So I'm going to go through just each category, and we'll, if you guys want to ask me questions as we go, please do. So the salary and benefits, we already mentioned, it has 1 full-time plus 2 part-time. We put $3,500 into general office supplies and $2,000 into forms and printing, which is like our books that we do for the annual meeting and things like that. Consulting services, I've set that aside with the intention of doing a strategic plan. That was money that was not planned for this last year, and we really need a strategic plan to move this forward correctly. Contractual services is...
Real quick on that, Jen,
Yeah.
strategic plan for like a kind of a 5-year plan for...
Right, and that would be done by the new agency.
Okay, very good.
That's a separate line item that's just kind of an addition to what they already proposed?
It should be, yes. It's a very large dollar amount, Sean, and I did not ask them to include it in the original budget that I gave them. So again, the original budget that was set up, it was kind of split down the middle, so $400,000 went to the agency to plan, and then the balance was kept with my department. So I do have funds in my side that I would like to add to the new contract and increase their total budget, depending on city council's direction and approval. So the contractual service category has our agency fees, has public relation fees, social media management, the SEO, the Simple View 12-month contract that goes up and running, plus creative that we do independently, such as our passports or our visitor guide. So that is totally different than how it was before. Before, mental marketing's fees have been kind of mixed in, and I don't think that's good. I think it needs to be really broken out. Out of home is that's what you call outdoor boards or bus shelters, anything like that. In our case, it refers to our 2 outdoor boards. Plus, I've included putting a new flex face on the Highway 1 board, which is a large amount of money. It's $5,000 to install that and get it printed. We do have that creative approved, and just through getting the construction redone and getting the new extension put on the board, it was finally ready to go this month, and I made a decision to halt on it because we're so close to seeing new creative. I think it's such a large amount of money. I just want to wait and see if we're going to change and have new conceptual work that we want to put on there and use that $5,000 wisely. Sean?
If I recall, it was about 6 or 7 months ago we approved that billboard. I'm wondering if we have explored or have the opportunity to explore other parcels or other companies that could make that happen faster than 7 months moving forward.
It's on private land, so it's just a really difficult situation. It's not on public land that anybody can just go up and work on the board. So we had to, get estimates. We only had 2 companies that could estimate it out. They had to rebuild the structure and the can at the top. It's been more of a process than I expected because all that came down in the wind. Excuse me. So promotional and advertising, that is the dollar figures that I've set aside for any sort of a promotion that we do as a board, such as the September wine promotion that we're talking about doing. Digital media, I put part of the general funds into this category. That's part of the 157 that comes from the general fund contribution. And this This category is all of our different digital outlets that run through our agency. That's Adara. Adara is a media conglomerate, and they are basic hospitality, and they have about 100 different networks that they advertise us onto that are hospitality related. Ad Taxi, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and then Google AdWords. So that's got a wide variety in there. Again, this might slightly change with the new agency. They might say, let's add Pinterest, or, so.
So I want to back up to what you said about this. As part to fund this part of it, you applied the whole $157,000, because isn't that where the event funding comes from too, the general fund contributions?
So I'm putting $100,000 into the grant funds.
Okay, got it.
And then $57,000 I'm splitting into a couple different categories
Okay,
that I
very
thought
good.
would be
So
good from a
just-
destination standpoint for general funds.
Okay, thank you.
So the marketing consulting, we have Moby Manage that's in there, possible additional creative if needed. The community event support, that's the $100,000 that I just mentioned, Maggie. Promotional media, this is printing of different goods. We have our visitor guide, which we did 20,000 of this year, the 4 different passports, different added value items, support materials that us as in the department manage for events that we actively manage, such as the crawls. We do little passports for them, just different things that we have to fund internally. And then the visiting journalists, this is where I also put general funds. I put $25,000 into visiting journalists because, again, it promotes the destination as a whole, and I thought it was a good use of general funds. Any questions on that page? No?
Can you briefly explain the transfers in and transfers out, and where the city currently stands with providing promised services in the realm of tech and accounting?
Yeah, so I believe there's about a $20,000 figure there. That includes a 2% fee on the collections of the assessments that we do. It's finance, so that helps pay for kind of the finance folks, as well as your clerk here who does the minutes. And then there's about $3,500 for IT. That doesn't include any overhead. It doesn't include rent. Doesn't include my oversight of Jen and her team. Doesn't include city attorney assistance. Doesn't include event support, charging for things like Winterfest, so the whole recreation team, the whole consolidated maintenance team supported that without any reimbursement from TBID. And there's no support for video audio for the Vets Hall. So those are all kind of things that the general fund subsidizes for the TBID, which is in line with the resolution that says we shall support. That gives you kind of an idea. I mean, if you put all that together, it's probably more like $50,000 or $75,000 that we would be assessing.
Before we had the current state of the TBID with the agreement with the city, the TBID was still paying the 2% for collection of the money. We've always paid that.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know. That's a good question.
No?
No. Okay.
That was part of the resolution.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the 2% was not clearly part of the resolution, but bringing it in-house and supporting it, as Scott said, was part of the resolution.
We're going to have public comment on this, right?
Okay, going on. So advertising sponsorship, that is mainly co-ops that we do with SlowCal, Visit California, Central Coast Tourism Council, Visit USA opportunities. So like we're hosting the Visit California Netherlands office in a week here, and we have expenses, so that'll go against those type of things. Professional development, we have $1,500 in that line item. These are just kind of clearly what they are. Other professional services, I have just a $2,000 placeholder. Postage is mainly mailing out our visitor guides. Trade show, rental, and transportation pretty much are what they are. That's our different tour trade shows that I go to. Utilities, the city has taken that to zero, and they're covering our utility cost of the building. Workers' comp, unemployment are currently based on the employee staff that we have. Meeting and conferences, that's Go West, that's the Visit California Outlook form that they do, so that is $2,500. Mileage and reimbursement, if it's a local, I try to take the city car whenever I can because I'd rather not put the miles on my car, but we do have a line item in there if I need mileage reimbursement on my car. Meals and lodging is also for the events. Travel expenses, my flights to those events. Memberships are Cal Travel, Central Coast Tourism, Bay Area Travel Writers, and DMA West are the associations that we actively participate in every year. Have any questions on the line items for the, Maggie, does that help you kind of understand it? I'd be glad to send you a copy of it. Can I answer any questions on the line items? Any other questions?
Trade shows, can you give me a list of trade shows that you anticipate besides Go West, which is in a different meeting and conference line, what you're looking at?
IPW, we always do with SlowCal, so we have an active, that's actually next month, I'm going to that in May. And then I usually try to rotate between ABA, American Bus Association, or NTA, National Bus Association, go to one of those every year. Go West, I think, is, I just dig Go West. I think it's one of our best opportunities for travel trade.
Any other questions?
With the new changes in the tax law, your meals and lodging expenses, are those just general travel expenses, or is there a different tax treatment for an incorporated city?
There's a guide that I follow that's put out federally of meal compensation for government employees, and so that's the numbers I use to get that dollar figure in there.
Just a question, the point you made earlier, which is very relevant. I think that we are in the middle of choosing our new marketing group. And so if we approve this, will these constraints or parameters be given to them to say, if you're bidding on this, understand that this is the amount of money we've allocated. It's kind of who's driving it, the cart or the horse. Are we going to tell them this is the money you're going to have to work with, so whatever you come forward? And I realize we already have the RFPs, and I know you gave us your RFP, and I apologize, I didn't look at it yet. But did you give them a ballpark figure in advance?
I did. I gave them the same one we have currently, the $420,000, I think it is, and I wanted to wait for our presentations and see if there's a couple agencies that are national agencies that also pitch that are in this review, and I'm curious where they come in financially. And if we, like I said, I think the strategic plan is really critical. We always have a marketing plan that's done, but really a long-term strategic plan I think we need as a city, how we're going to move the destination forward. So I put in $15,000. They might come back and say we need $25,000 to do that. So until we see their presentation, I mean, us as a group, I think we'll look at those presentations next month and say, hey, this is the group we want. We need to increase that allocation up to $500,000, and then we would move these accordingly, and that's what we would recommend to council, because the RFP will also go to council. They'll have to approve that new contract. But this is a draft RFP, Maggie. This is not the final, RFP. It's a draft annual report. Does that answer it, Scott? Any other thing? Yeah.
Do these categories now, the GL accounts now correlate to city accounting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
They actually added these categories specifically for me. I mean, it's fantastic. So it's going to make a big difference.
Any further comments, Taylor?
Yeah, so since this is the annual reporting time that you're doing right now, do you have a response to my question earlier about adding a full-time staff, like where that $40,000 would come from to do that, Jen?
So it's actually the number that I got from the city treasurer is 44,000 to be exact, and that would be to increase Shannon. She's currently, or that position is 35 hours, and that would take them to 40, just so you're aware.
So currently, how much are we spending on, so like, it's not $44,000 difference, it's, because we're already paying.
It's additional.
In addition to what we're paying?
Correct. Because you have PERS and you have benefits, plus her hourly rate would change. They had to go through and look at other cities and what those rates look like and set that parameter up, similar.
So the total number would be?
Let's see. So currently, I don't have her broken down. I have 2 part-timers. My 2 part-time staff currently is 44,000.
So 2 part-time staff and then adding 44,000 to that to make one of them full-time?
That's correct. That's correct.
And do you have any idea where you could get that money from?
Part of that would depend on our agency, like I mentioned before, and if we want to add money to the agency contract as well, so keep that in mind. I do have some categories that we could pull from that I have placeholders in that, like we have the creative placeholder in one category that's $10,000. I have a few different categories like that.
Okay. So you, essentially, if you had a few different categories that had $10,000, and then we would need like more than a few, but it's a possibility.
Yes.
That's speculative.
But I go back to the question, playing devil's advocate a little bit here. Do you think you could accomplish a lot more if you could take one of your part-time people to a full-time position? I mean, I'm not clear. I know, Taylor, you've been on a campaign for a while, and I understand to get more help there. But how I work in my business is we define the roles and what's needed and where there's a gap, and then we determine what's required to fill that.
That's basically what I'm trying to accomplish myself, because I see 5 more hours adding $44,000 in cost, and it's hard to pencil in my head. However, there's other considerations like retaining good employees. I fully understand that, especially coming to Morro Bay where we don't necessarily pay to the highest salary range anywhere in any of our positions. So it's something very important to me, but I need to understand the global perspective within what Jen has to offer and what Taylor and you guys have seen, because you've been here a lot longer than I have, but I also need to assess kind of strengths and weaknesses of the existing staff, see if things can be moved around, if there's a way to do that without having to add all this additional cost. I haven't been able to do that analysis yet. And that's kind of what I was trying to reiterate. It's not that I disagree, I just haven't been able to do that yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and one last comment for me on this topic would be, to consider how much we pay Jen compared to other people in this industry. I have my opinion on that, which I think that she's worth more than she's getting paid. And also, I look at what was the cost if we lose Shannon. I mean, what if Shannon quits because she gets a better job? What if Shannon quits because we're not offering her a future? What are the ramifications of that? How much does that cost us? I mean, that's also speculative, but you're the numbers man, so.
Like I said, you have to look at the whole equation, and retainment is absolutely part of that. And I have to look.
You're good at that.
I hope so. I have to look at that in every department for sure. That's a great point.
A different ROI line item that I think needs to be considered, whether it's now or I guess if we waited till next year's budget, is some probably in the ballpark of 40 or 50 grand that would include things like temporary staging, tenting, tables, chairs, in a way that would really make things possible for some of our smaller and mid-size events, and possibly even compensate for lack of physical space, compensate for lack of participation from Morro Bay businesses. Anything that we can do from a a TBID board perspective that compensates for the lack of enthusiasm from other areas, I think should be considered. So I'm not sure necessarily, it might be the kind of thing that we would have to pull all the existing events and coordinators to see what kind of equipment that they might need. I just think that investment-wise, from a TBID perspective, it wouldn't be permanent infrastructure, though I would argue that tourism money being spent on signage and things like that does make sense. It may not be written into our charter. So I think that if we can argue that it's more staging and event-based, then it may be worth consideration, whether it's now or next year.
Yeah, and this is my, you guys have heard me say this many times. I look at the huge amount of money being spent on digital media and a lot of this advertising that we can't track results on. And my frustration is, gosh, it seems like we ought to be able to allocate $50,000 to be able to do tents and things like that, versus paid advertising on Facebook. I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned in that regard, and I realize, I think the promotion and advertising is important, but I just look at the big bucks spent on a marketing firm and versus more tangible things that would actually, to exactly what Sean was saying, we're contributing some of our money to creating actual venues that could draw people in.
But most of our money, our budget, comes from assessment dollars for marketing. I mean, that's the definition of what we are. I mean, we can use general fund for these kind of things, but you can't spend the hotelier's assessment dollars that are directed for marketing to buy a tent. We can't use a hotelier's money to fix roads. We have to use it for marketing. That's what it's for. That's what we are. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have that contract. And that contract says the city gives $150,000 a year. The contract says this amount of this money can go to marketing, this money can go to whatever we want. That's the contract, correct?
More or less.
So also, conceptually, when you're talking about a destination, you are either talking about an event destination and pushing and promoting events, or do we want to brand our destination and grow that destination as a whole? It's a very different thought. And again, I think that will come out from our agency review next month as well, Maggie. It's not that black and white. I don't know. I mean, putting just dollars and dollars and dollars into events, what does that grow us compared to bettering our destination? And that's what we really need to look at as a board. Strategic plan would help give us that focus. I think it's really critical for us to have a footprint that we look at as a board, all of us, and say, and it toes the line. This is where we want to be and this is where we want to grow to, and it really keeps us focused on a grow forward. So the minutia of a tent versus no tent, an event versus no event, I think it's drilling down to where we shouldn't right now, to be honest, just because we're in such an odd flux with an agency contract renewing in July.
Well, as much as I appreciate the support on events, and events do draw, and they're very important to our continued success, brand. We need to brand Morro Bay as a bigger, better destination. And so I would be reticent to think about TBID buying a tent and tables and chairs and amplifiers and everything. If anything, it should be, again, the rec department, which could then give some sweet deals to people and then also rent them for big bucks to other people. Great ideas, Joan, really great conceptual, but again, I can't see TBID buying tents and tables and chairs. Any other comment from our board? Any other questions? If not, I'm going to open up to public comment.
Joan Solu, resident of Morro Bay. I'd like to thank Jennifer for spending about 2 hours of time with me over the past week answering the questions that I had regarding your agenda and this report. So what I'd like to speak with you about is you've spent a lot of time drilling down on the finances, this category, what's in that, what's in this, and I totally agree with Jennifer's assessment of it's human nature to say, I'm going to save for my retirement. And you're 21 years old, and you hopefully instill that in your kids to start, saving right away. But that's something that's so out there, so not tangible, so not that they can grasp, that they don't really see the value in it. But when you talk to them about saving 20% of their salary for groceries and entertainment, they can understand that. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about tents and events versus digital marketing and marketing in general. When we talk about adding staff and adding the cost of staff, you have to look at the whole picture. Adding $44,000 to $195,000 gets you into the $240,000 range on your staff, plus 15% agency fees to pay their staff to do the marketing too. So now you add $60,000 to that 240 number, and you're up into $300,000 of overhead for staff to run around and market this city. 1/3 of your budget, and if the city draws back on that general fund money, you're at 40% of your budget in overhead. So I would be very, very cautious and conscientious about how you approach that when you have the conversation. Further, I appreciate all of your conversation in terms of that financial, but I think you had zero conversation regarding goals and objectives. Your goals and objectives are listed out in here for your staff, but none of them are tangible. Charlie, you just said it. I base my staff's incentive off STAR report numbers. There isn't a single goal or objective in here that has a number attached to it that's tangible for your staff to reach. Not one. When we talk about increasing midweek ADR, increasing it from what to what? If we increase it 1 cent, have we met our goal? Or is our goal to increase it $100? What's the goal? What's the tangible goal? And I'm hoping that when I made this comment, that I'm making the comment on this portion of your conversation, and that if you move on to a separate portion of conversation regarding the ordinance, I get to comment then. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Any additional public comment? Any additional comments or concerns, questions here from the board?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2018-19 annual report and recommend City Council to continue the 3% T-bid.
Do you have a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none. I hear, I'm waiting.
Breeze through that pretty quickly, huh? All right. Going back, I in favor, but I didn't get a chance to use my microphone.
Confused. We're voting on the 3% and the budget altogether, or we're going to separate that out?
We're currently voting on the annual report
The budget is part of the annual report.
and the budget,
Okay.
and recommending that we maintain the 3%. Is that correct? Do you need to restate the motion?
Yeah, I can restate it. It's pretty much
Well,
exactly
hold on.
stated there. You want to read it back to me?
Well, my question is, if Sean actually has comments, I'd rather, if we're going to redo the motion, I'd rather hear those first. Yeah, I withdraw my second.
I think that Joan's comments about the goals and objectives are an important one, and to quantify some of these goals and objectives, I'm not sure why we would just rush into 5 I's without adding some quantitative goals. In terms of doing that, it's kind of hard to do that on the fly, and I wouldn't want to delay that process any further, but I would expect staff to be able to come up with what they consider lofty but reachable goals, and then we can edit those as needed. Whether those quantitative numbers come in maybe around the same time that agency comes in with their plan, that seems feasible. Not every single goal needs to be quantitative in nature. Some can be qualitative because we appreciate that kind of vague branding of sorts. But yeah, I think that midweek versus weekend is an important measurement. I think that tracking historical averages and then weighing that with current conditions and not just rolling over projections would be useful, so we can just quantify as many of those goals and objectives as possible. That's pretty much what I wanted to say.
So, and just to be clear, Sean, having the hotels do the reporting midweek versus weekends is really not something that would honestly be a goal and objective for me. That is a city process that we would need to get from the city treasurer. She would need to somehow probably reissue to the hotels and get their approval. Is that right, Scott? Or I don't know how that would work.
I don't either, but it would require discussion at minimum.
It's a big deal. It's not really, I totally agree with you, but I think maybe what we need to do is state that the goals and objectives that are listed, that we would accept them as a draft, and based on the agency input, we would like to see updated goals for the June TBID meeting. And then they would be, those goals would be adopted in July once the new agency is on board. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, and also on that same note, I was going to bring this up for a future agenda item, that it would seem to make more sense to have June's TBID meeting on the first Thursday of the month rather than the third, because it sounds like the hearing for City Council is June 12th.
I don't think you can do that.
I don't know, it seems like, and plus it's before the summer session where everyone starts getting busy anyway. I'm not sure if that's...
It would be a special meeting we'd have to, so I need to look at the calendar and see what we can fit in.
Okay. And then if that one quantitative item between midweek and weekend is not a make or break number in my opinion, and if it is excessive workload to make that happen, even something as simple as an informal qualitative questionnaire of hoteliers to gauge progress, happiness, something in that realm, at least it's like feedback from 30 out of 38 people or whatever it is.
And that's staff time. Just keep that in mind. We're talking about staff time because we do that for events. When we have holiday weekends, special events, we actively call going into those events so we can track if they're successful and useful to our dollars. So it's just, again, staff time.
Yeah, so much of this stuff is staff time. I mean, talking to hoteliers for 2 hours in a week is staff time, adding these requests to staff time, and we keep on coming up with more staff time. I have a motion on the table.
Well, I've got further comment. We keep talking about budgets and money and needing additional staff. Well, we've been talking for a year and a half about including vacation rentals and RVs that would bring in additional money. I understand it would be a smaller percentage of the budget than the hotels, but I think it's a relevant point. So no, I wouldn't support another 3% until we address that issue. We ran the numbers, and I believe it came out to about 2.5% if RVs and VRs were included. I mean, at the very least, even if there wasn't a reduction, there would be more money for the budget to hire more staff, correct?
Right.
So the way to do it is to split the two items, is to approve the annual report and then ask for a second motion in relation to VR RVs. Is that right, Lori?
We have to recommend an amount to continue forward, yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, the TBID, so we need to recommend an amount to continue forward with while we determine if we're going to go down the vacation rental RV path. It's like two separate paths that are going to happen at different times. So if you recommend to continue at 3%, that would begin July 1. And then you're also going to do a second recommendation, possibly, to look at adding vacation rentals and RV parks. That's a separate path. But that allows the TBID to continue at 3% for that interim window.
So first we have to approve our existence, which allows us to discuss changes to our existence.
Right.
Correct?
I mean, yes.
And question to Steve, comment, if we added vacation rentals in the bid, could you use that money for staff, or does that money have to go to marketing?
You could use it for staff.
You could.
Staff is marketing.
So we could currently, therefore, use our assessment dollars for staff also?
You do? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I wouldn't go any further in your discussion about, yeah.
So do you want me to amend my motion, or do you want me to keep my motion as is? How would you like me to amend my motion?
Microphone, Steve.
So I feel like what my motion is allows us to exist, and then we have another discussion about adding vacation rentals. So I don't know if that changes my motion.
You have to adopt the annual report with all 6
which is what I currently
factors,
have on the
which
table.
also includes the budget, just making sure that's clear.
Which is what I currently have on the table.
Yes, that's right.
Correct.
So we do that, and then we can discuss it and have another motion.
But your motion is to approve the annual report and the budget and the 3%, or are you separating those
3%
two?
of, which
Yes.
To
is the,
continue forward with.
Yes. The assessment rate is part of the 6 factors. Yes.
it doesn't disqualify us having the discussion about vacation rentals. My motion doesn't disqualify that. We can do that after we approve my motion, which establishes our existence. So my motion's on the table.
We have a motion. Any further comment, questions, concerns?
You need a second.
Looking for a second.
I second the motion.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes, and we're moving on.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we have a discussion now about adding vacation rentals in the future for city council to talk about, for us to make as part of our future changes to the T-bid? I would love to see, if we were going to make that change, I want to see it is equal to what the hoteliers put in, and then I'd make that.
So hold on.
Okay.
If we're going to have this discussion as a group, we have to excuse Mr. Green. I really apologize, Sean, but just,
Can you first explain why I have to be recused?
If you're going to be discussing adding the vacation rentals and RV parks, my understanding is you are an at-large position and that you are an owner of a vacation rental. So you would be excluded from being allowed to discuss or vote on that item.
All right, so.
Okay, but I still don't understand how we can just ad hoc bring this on to the agenda.
You're basically, you would be adding it as a motion with this annual report. It would be a second motion that would accompany this.
it's a recommendation to change the boundaries. So you don't actually have to pick a percentage. You could just recommend to council to change the boundaries.
But we could recommend to.
You could.
I mean, we would, and Maggie,
again,
we
so
need
if we're
all
gonna-
4 of us to agree with Sean leaving. All 4 of us have to agree for it to do anything. So if I say I don't agree, or I recuse, or whatever, it automatically goes back to the black hole.
But with Sean leaving, there's only 3 of us.
You need 4. You need 4. You have 7. You have a 7-member board. You need 4.
So they would need, as I'm about ready to head out the door, they would need 4 people to unanimously agree to approve, to recommend vacation rentals and RV inclusion into the T-bid on an item that is not on the agenda, and it is not been noticed to the public or any vacation rental owners to chime in on this issue. All right, I'll recuse myself.
It is in the agenda. So if you read the annual report, that it states that they have the option to discuss changing the boundaries, and that's all this is.
Discussing changing of the boundaries is on the table. Okay. All right.
So we're still on the same item.
Only during deliberation.
So it's open to board to have your discussion.
This is a, somewhat contentious item, of course, and I disagree with Sean having to leave the table, but that's the way it is. I have also been an advocate to bring RV parks and campgrounds and VRBOs into the fold as they are benefiting from our action and our expenditures. We can make a motion to move this forward and take a vote. We can also make a motion to defer to the city council and let the city council come up with this. The city council is very, as far as my discussions, very open to bringing in VRBO and RV parks into this assessment.
Before you have a motion, I want to highly advise that every board member give their opinion, give their thoughts, because you only have 4 of you up there, so you all have to agree to have a motion move forward. So you guys need to really talk through this, good or bad, just talk through it until you find somewhere you...
I think the board knows my opinion, and my opinion is that they've been benefiting all along. I think they should join in at 3% and come to these meetings, join our board, and get active. And that's my opinion.
Okay, well, and since we're discussing including the, opening up the boundaries, and I don't know if there's some constraint to it, I don't understand the details of it, but if we're looking at benefit, who really benefits this town has a ton of day visitors. So who really benefits are the businesses, the restaurants, the gas stations, the grocery stores. I understand they pay sales tax, but we pay TOT. Their sales tax is what, 7.7, I don't know what it is currently in Morro Bay, but, and we're paying a 10% tax. And then in addition, you want to put 3%, you're putting it all on the back of the overnight guest. And if we're talking about expanding boundaries, and I really think you have to open it up beyond just the other lodging entities to looking at some inclusion on the part of the businesses. So that's my opinion. I also feel like, we had the town hall meeting about this. People came forward and were pretty vocal about it. We formed a subcommittee to discuss this, and the recommendation coming out of that subcommittee that kind of died on the vine, was that the RV and vacation rentals participate in the promotional portion of it, not the 3%, that we come up with a percentage that would be fair to them. Because if I look at the expenditures, and I don't know if it's fair for me to talk about this, but because I manage a hotel and vacation rentals, when I see that you go to these trade shows and a lot of the promotional stuff does not benefit an individual vacation rental or an RV park. These people are looking to bring big groups. When you talk about, trying to do more to attract conventions and groups like that, that doesn't benefit us, doesn't benefit the vacation rental aspect. So, I can go through and pick, and we can look at it very closely, and I can say, yeah, we definitely, vacation rentals and RV parks benefit from the publicity and promotion of the destination, but there's a lot of activities that they do not benefit by. So to unilaterally wrap them into a 3% assessment, which is huge, without them having participated in the beginning, when this whole thing was formed, and to just be able to go out and say, now you have to pay what we decided to pay in 2009, seems really, really unfair. And so I will absolutely vote against this.
Well, I agree with the point that the 3% is huge. And, for those of us in the room that see the overall income and expense statements on these hotels, Charlie, Joan, Morro Bay collectively has the highest taxes out of any area just about in the state. And it's very hard to make these properties operate. Morro Bay is a very special area, but let alone, I think we voted on this over a year ago, is my recollection, and we had majority to support this. But I would support it overwhelmingly because, number one, I think it's fair. And number two, even if we don't reduce the 3%, there's additional funds there. There's your new staff member. All right? So that accomplishes all the things we discussed earlier today. So I would definitely support this.
I would support it at 3%, especially if it could allow us to have another staff member. But at the same time, I'm not in support of adding vacation rentals for for some reasons, that being, I feel like it adds a ton of staff time. I think there's a lot of, the number of vacation rentals that would then have access to our staff because they're on the bid would increase staff time for very little profit. Because if we added vacation rentals at 3%, the amount of revenue, let's call it, coming in from them compared to how much we get from the hotels is very small. It's a small number, and it allows them to take up so much staff time. And staff time is how we accomplish the whole point of the bid. So I feel like vacation rentals, they're right now not paying their share, but what they offer us isn't enough money for how much they cost us. And I'm also not a huge fan of us creating Morro Bay as a vacation rental town. I would really want to see Morro Bay focus on hotels. I feel like vacation rentals take away from the growth of our city towards being financially responsible for itself. I feel like we don't have enough places for employees to live here. I feel like a lot of people get their employees from Santa Maria or other places because they can't live here. I feel like vacation rentals are an unfair usage of our city's properties that are private use. I feel like hotels benefit the beautification of our city, whereas vacation rentals kind of hide it. Those are my thoughts. But at the same time, if 3% would allow us to add a staff, I think it's worth it. So I think that it will fail to move that forward if we made a motion at 3% right now. What I think could be a possibility would be to, because it's in the black hole. I mean, however you want to have this discussion, it's lost right now without us giving the city council a chance to discuss it. Right now, what we could do is we could make a motion to reopen this discussion, bring it back to where we left it off last time, and allow city council to give us some direction with this. But if we were to make a motion right now to add vacation rentals and at 3%, that's going to fail because we need all four of us to agree, and Maggie's not going to agree to that. So what way could we have this discussion continue and make a motion towards that?
We can make a motion to recommend that we take it to city council.
So before a motion, I want to have staff discussion and public comment. So no motion yet, but, so go ahead. If you want to talk more, Charlie, please go ahead.
But this way we keep it moving, get it out of the black hole, and we take it to the city council so that they would.
And it's already going to city council in May.
It's already going.
Because we're going to have the giant, the global discussion.
And
right?
so we can have a recommendation or not.
You can choose to do nothing.
We can stay silent
it's
if we
going to be
want.
at council in May, one way or another.
So my question would go to you, Maggie. Like, how would you like us as a board to present this topic to council? Since right now we haven't presented anything to council on this topic. Even though it's on record that we had all this discussion, we actually didn't make a recommendation. It just died. And so, like, do you want it to be left like that, or would you like to make some sort of recommendation? Because we have the opportunity right now. And you have three of us agreeing that we could do this thing, which you're not with.
I think I already kind of stated my position, and to me, I would take a larger, a more global look at it, which is what I would really like the city council to consider is how can the whole community participate in this, because the whole community benefits from it. I go back to what I keep saying is that the restaurants, the gas stations, all of that benefit from it. So if we're going to look at expanding the boundary of this T-bid, how could we do it proportionately, even if it continues mostly to be on the back of the lodging? Is there some way to bring in those other components to that? Because it's a bigger problem. If we're trying to generate more money to promote more tourism, you gotta bring in all the people who participate in it or who benefit from it. So my personal opinion would be to look at it in a much more holistic viewpoint rather than just RVs and vacation rentals, paying 3%. It would be, what would be a reasonable amount for hotels, vacation rentals, RV parks, businesses to contribute to a business, a tourism bid that would promote the city. And so that's what I would like the review to be, but that's my personal opinion.
That's a good idea, Maggie. I would support that. Unfortunately, Sean left, but can you guys remind me, maybe Jennifer, the result of that community meeting? I think Sean spoke for some of the vacation rental owners. Weren't they suggesting a certain rate?
There was some suggestion that they would support 1%, but that was just a few people that came up at public comment.
Right. And the rationale is that there's a recognition, at least some of them, that they benefit from the general branding and marketing efforts of the T-bid, right? There are functions that are specific to hotels and motels that Jen and staff perform. So if you brought in T-bid at 3%, they would have to have the attendant support, which is the point that Taylor was making earlier. Now you have 250 hotel owners who are now part of this, and they're going to expect to get the same level of service. Well, that's not possible. So you would have to staff up just for them. We would have, if we were going to add the $44,000, all that person would be doing is attending to VR, RV folks. So that isn't going to address the bigger issue of supporting hotels and motels. And the idea of having kind of a global bid for everybody who benefits from tourism would be a difficult thing to do, and something I wouldn't be prepared to make a recommendation to council on in a month from now. But it's certainly worth a conversation. I know there's probably other bids in this country that have a mixture of hotels and restaurants. Yeah, it could be separate bids.
So just so Scott picked up some of my comments as well, as far as talking about the 1% and the PR that they already get. I wanted to go back and talk about the boundaries, Maggie, for a quick minute. So boundaries can also be discussed about not including downtown or not including North Morro Bay, areas that really don't financially influence tourism as much when you're talking about restaurant or retail. So you guys can also think about things like that to recommend to council. The other thing is I have a really big challenge with the idea of including restaurants. So the restaurants on the west side of the Embarcadero, they pay a pretty big fee to the Harbor Department right now, very, very substantial. And if we also tacked on another one, it's a lot, and it's a completely different type of business. You're talking about, you buy a piece of fish, it's only good for so many days and they throw it away. So the amount of turnover that they have compared to like washing a sheet and putting it on the shelf is very different aspect than what a hotel has to deal with. So it would really need to be analyzed, and we need to have really great discussion with the restaurants to see if there's a probability that they can financially support it, because their overhead is pretty significant when you're talking about loss on F&B. It's a totally different business. So I would not recommend to include them in that, but I do think that there's a great concept of recommending to the city council to keep reviewing and look at some sort of inclusion with VR and RVs. But again, you could exclude downtown, or you could exclude North Morro Bay if you wanted to do that. I mean, there's all different ways you can look at boundaries.
We have a T-bid in the city of Capitola for a hotel we operate there. It's voted on annually at the city council level. And retailers and restaurants are included in that. It's not much, but it's something. And then they factor in the number of hotel rooms. The vast majority is paid by the hoteliers, but there is contribution from the restaurants and the retailers.
Yeah, I think the goal, I go back to exactly what Steve brought up earlier, which is when we were going through the town hall and all this came to light, is that Morro Bay is pretty much the highest tax you can get in the state. And so quite honestly, I would like to see the hotel portion go down. I'd like to be able to balance that somehow, have the RV and VRs participate, and if there's a way and a model we could follow that could bring in maybe not restaurants but businesses or whatever, that and to me it's too much to accomplish by June. It's not going to happen. It's a huge topic, and so that's why I really ask that we not rush to say yes, we're going to tag the RV and VRs with 3%. I've heard everyone here speak that it's a different animal, just like a business is a different animal from a hotel. So I think it's a much bigger topic. If we move forward with any recommendation, it would be for, I guess, for the city council to look at alternatives and relook at the amount that's charged and how that could be balanced across the benefiting parties and who we should define as the benefiting parties. But again, the city council doesn't have the resources to drill down on this either. So I don't quite know how, is that true, Scott? I mean,
we don't have time to do it in a month.
Yeah.
That's so much is clear.
Yeah.
You know, this was a topic of discussion. Their goals and objectives is to really hone in on tourism, but it's more basic level, just, you know, how is it performing? How is it performing since it's changed hands? And VR RVs was part of that. Just, okay, how do we pick up the ball and move because it didn't get anywhere here with T-bid? I don't think they'd be prepared to say in a couple months we'd have an answer to that more global question. And also, you know, in adopting this budget and hopefully bringing on a great firm, we've met with several of them who have a lot of exciting ideas about branding and understanding, kind of like what Joan was saying, is that it takes time to invest in this and it pays off in the long run because a lot of our visitors are in the boomer generation and they're going to be coming around for a while, but what are we doing to invest in the Xers and millennials? And, you know, start to get them interested in it. This is a long sell, you know. So we really have to look at that too. And that's why I'm excited about doing kind of that strategic plan to really tell us, you know, what direction we want to take. And, you know, as Sean was saying, well, how do you measure that success? Beyond just platitudes and little bullet points, like actual dollar amounts or percentages. That's what these folks are going to bring to the table. So yeah, I think we'll be able to start moving in that direction. I can't do that in a couple months though, but if council so directs, we can make it a priority and really invest time in this upcoming year to drill down, which means probably more like looking at next year for big changes. But you certainly could mid-year make a change.
I have a question. So when the council has this discussion about this topic, possibly, could they make a resolution to add the VR vacation rentals at 3% or 1% or whatever they wanted?
They could do that as a separate, it would be a separate ordinance. So the meeting in May, they're going to look at this kind of globally, and that starts the 30-day hearing period, and then they'd have the hearing in June. So during the May meeting, if they felt it was imperative to include VR and RVs in this, they would have to come back with an ordinance to change and add them in. That would take 2 readings in 30 days. So that would occur after you've already adopted the TBID annual report, right? So that means mid-year you'd have to adjust your annual report if you wanted to add them in at a later time.
So with or without any recommendation from us, City Council can move this forward?
That's correct.
But I think it's good for city council to hear that you support or don't support, whether it's a percentage or not, that you're either, yes, we should look at it, or no, we don't agree to look at it.
I think Maggie's suggestion was pretty much split the difference between all of you and just finding the happy medium, right? I think that seems supportive.
Any further comments from the board, or I would like to open this up to public comment?
Deep breath. My name is Joan Solu, and I'd like to speak to you regarding your boundaries and this conversation. This has been a 10-year conversation. Vacation rentals benefit more so than campgrounds on this. Vacation rentals are individual hotel units in residential neighborhoods. Vacation rentals should be paying into this assessment equilaterally to your hotel. Having said that, you have every opportunity here. Maggie has some great concerns, and one of hers is you can't just swallow them into this budget because there's things that don't affect them in this budget. I totally agree with that. But there's a very simple solution, and we as humans love to complicate things. We like to sometimes overthink and really confuse even ourselves. With that, very similar to the way that you report for the general fund monies that come in, which should be $157,000 this year, those general fund monies are held separately and are accounted for separately and are shown separately to show how they have been used to benefit the entire community. Therefore, any assessment dollars that are brought in for vacation rentals shall have the input of the vacation, meaning you would have to add vacation rental owners proportionally on this board, and they would be able to set up a budget for that funding through Jennifer for marketing specifically to benefit the vacation rentals. It's very simple. The law makes it simple. Therefore, the benefit is shown. Would be my recommendation to you to make a recommendation to your city council that they include vacation rentals in the fiscal 18-19 year. They can start that in November or December, second quarter, third quarter, whatever that is, first, second, third quarter, whatever you recommend. But it would be my recommendation that you do that, because Maggie, if you don't ever get married to this and jump over the broomstick so that we can move forward, if we never bring anybody else into this, we'll never bring anybody else into this. So bringing vacation rentals in and RV parks in, if that's what you decide to do, is the first step to reaching out and putting your hand across the table and having that conversation with restaurants. It's the next step in a forward-moving success for our entire community. And it's so important to the success and the future of our community that I hope that you see it. Now is your time to extend that hand to each other and to bring those people in and get the work done that needs to be done. Thank you.
And my response to that, Joan, is that then we start at ground zero. We start over. We do. You guys, the hoteliers, reach across the table to the RV and VR people, and bring them into the discussion and determine a new, what is really a fair and equitable amount for. To ask them to come in at a 3% rate when they had no input to that in the beginning, and just say, well, that's what we decided was fair and that's what we decided was new. I look at this budget, I don't know how much my digital marketing, the $338,000 is going to benefit the city. I have no way of, I agree with you. It's all intangible and it definitely benefits. We know that. We see tourism growing here. But it's not point-to-point measurable. And to just arbitrarily say it's 3% and you need to start paying that when you weren't part of that discussion or that vote in the beginning, talk about reaching across the table. I think where we have to start is wipe the slate clean, come back, look at what the boundaries should be, what the amount should be, which of the rulings we should operate under, whether it's the 1989 or the 1990, whatever, so I appreciate your comments, but I also feel like, it's being pushed upon with it's taxation without representation.
I had a question for staff. So if we were to add vacation rentals as part of the bid, but had their assessment portion as a separate item in the budget like we do for the city's general fund money, could we then, therefore, what we use that money on, that's what the vacation rentals get to comment on or participate on? Like, in relation to what I'm concerned about, is that would be a way of controlling staff costs. So if, let's say, we only use a portion of their portion of the assessment in our budget for certain things that they agreed to, then that would be the only portion of the staff time that they would be accessible to.
That's correct, and my recommendation before was to bring them into the public relations and visiting journalists section of it. That doesn't really impact our staff as heavily, and it is promoting the destination right now. And I do pass up journalists that want to stay in vacation rentals right now. I say no to those right now.
So if City Council decided to add vacation rentals to the bid, but their assessment portion was kept separate and was used for only these directives, then the vacation rentals would get to participate on that part, but not necessarily on the portion that the hoteliers get to participate on, which is a vast larger amount of our funds.
Correct.
That sounds like something we could do.
Scott, just to kind of put this conversation in perspective, if we've got in the budget $836,000 approximate for T-bid assessment in 18-19, we kind of ran the numbers for vacation rentals at 3%. What did that work out to, like 50 or 60,000?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was for each percentage point, it was about $60,000.
So for 3%, it would be
it'd be close to
180,000.
Yeah, that's my recollection. And I think when Connie was in this, previously in this position of deputy city manager, he looked at that for preparing for that October meeting, and I think the closest you could get to a equilibrium was at around 2.5%. If hotels, motels drew down at 0.5%, and RVs came all the way up to 2.5%, that you would kind of equalize the budget so there wouldn't be a loss of revenue.
Right.
But you wouldn't be, in essence, adding anything. And then, to Taylor's point, other points have been made, then existing staff would then have to carve out their time to support VRs only.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so then you'd see a reduction in services to hotels and motels.
Yeah, if I do a quick math on it, just based on last year's figures of trailer park receipts and vacation rentals, it looks like it'd be about 44, so it'd be about 130,000 more.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get consensus today, but we've spent a lot of energy on this topic in fits and starts. So if there's any way that we can just continue the momentum so we can try and get somewhere after talking about it for 2 to 10 years, is there something that we can all agree on, maybe a recommendation to council that they continue the discussion?
I think that the best way for this, I think we all agree that it's a benefit to the VRs and the RVs. I think that we're not going to come to a consensus today at this board, and I think that what we need to do is recommend that the city council, which is already on their agenda for May, that we recommend that they look into the VRBO component in collection. I do take a little bit of offense to your representation without, taxation, because you guys are represented. You've got representation. Our branding, all of the things that we do PR are benefiting you. So it's hard for me to say, I think that you're getting representation without taxation. You're not paying in, so you're getting all the benefit. So I just take issue with that, Maggie. I'm sorry, but you guys are getting benefit, and you're not paying anything.
No, I did not. I'm sorry if that was the impression I gave. My comment is that we absolutely benefit, and I agree that VRs and RVs ought to pay in. I also continue to make the point that I believe businesses benefit a lot by the promotion of this destination, and they should pay in somehow to that, to the promotion of, specifically to the promotion of tourism. My point being, and maybe I said it incorrectly, was bringing in RV and VR people who did not participate in the original discussion and determined and came up with the 3% assessment. No, to just arbitrarily say, well, we decided it should be 3%, so now you have to pay the 3%. So I think if I were going to move forward with the motion, it would be to ask, and maybe let me just throw it out there, would be to recommend to the city council that they proceed with looking at bringing in RV and VR lodging or into the assessment but and to evaluate what proportionate benefits, what's the word, to assess, try to determine, to assess them at the proportionate to the benefits they feel like that they would get from the work done by the.
Right.
By the. But I don't know, that would be, I think we.
Could you read that back to us?
Okay, but it looks like, are we still looking for?
You already held it.
We already.
Sorry.
Okay. Feel free to edit this.
I can try and restate it.
Okay, so your motion was to recommend to City Council to proceed looking at bringing in vacation rentals and RV parks, and that they evaluate the proportionate assessment rate.
Yeah, to benefit, to evaluate, or to be guided by an assessment based on benefit. Maybe we run before we walk before we run. To Joan's point is, since that's the more, so I'd rather keep mine to RV and VR right now.
Okay, and you're wanting to add to be guided?
For them to assess it, and to look to assess them proportionate to the benefit received.
To the benefit received.
Makes sense.
Okay, you ready for another read?
Yeah.
Okay, recommend to City Council that they proceed looking at bringing in the vacation rentals and RV parks, and that they evaluate the proportionate assessment rate to the benefit received.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, motion on the table.
I've got a motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
Guess not.
Take what we can get. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? And one absent. Thank you.
A little bit.
Thank you, and thank you for the public comment, too. And we're gonna keep on moving in this meeting. It is...
Can Sean come back?
Sean can come back. We can get our...
Charlie, I need to excuse myself. Is there something important before I go that we should discuss?
Yeah.
Yes, because I'm nominating you.
My understanding, I think Sean
No, he's here.
is here.
He's here. It's okay, don't worry about it. We called for public comment.
Can I bring up more issues now that we've talked about vacation rental on that same issue? Okay.
Yeah. That's got to be pulled from the mayor, so he's pissed. He's pissed. We're gonna have to fix this. Well, what item are we on? Where can we? And then you can go future agenda items, and we can talk about it then.
Well, we were still in the annual budget. I was only absent for the vacation rental portion of that. So if new items want to be brought up on that specific item, I can still bring that up, yeah. We approved the budget, and then there was a new item.
You approved the annual report, and they added a motion to have a discussion at council about VR RVs.
Yeah, and that's changing the parameters or the scope or yeah, so I can bring another one of that type of thing up, no? It's the nature? Right? I mean, if someone can just bring up the vacation rentals out of the blue, then I can bring up other... Not explicitly. So if I go back to that parameters, no? I mean, that's a pretty loose interpretation of that one clause already to bring up that one point. So
What are you wanting to bring up, Sean, just specifically?
I just think that maybe we can also direct council to,
You can't direct council.
a request, I don't know, we're not the boss of council. We can request guidance from council possibly in rephrasing a small line item on a charter to allow somebody who is an at-large member to participate in something that he is far less self-interested in than everyone else on the board.
Would that conflict with the Brown Act?
What I would recommend is that Sean, you talk with the mayor and Councilmember McPherson, who are working on the council policy manual as well as advisory guidelines. And we had a good discussion already with one council meeting, and there's going to be another one coming up pretty soon. I think that would probably be the best way to direct your comments.
Okay.
I think we have a lot to learn from this meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to thank you for your participation too, because we're all volunteers up here, guys, and it's some rough stuff sometimes. Yeah. And to have one of our members leave really isn't right either. So I would stand with you, with the mayor and McPherson, to talk about the change in the policy to keep you up here. Your voice is very important to us. So thank you. We're going to move on to B6, nomination and election of the chair and vice chair positions. How exciting. So I took over as chair from Aaron, and have been leading the meetings the last 5 meetings, and I don't mind leading meetings and being here. I know we're all super busy. I haven't really spoken too much other than kind of joking with my fellow folks, but I would really like to nominate Stephen as the chair. I haven't asked you. I haven't talked to you.
Was not expecting that. I would defer to your seniority, and I think you're doing a great job. I appreciate that, Charlie, but I think, I would like to see you continue to be the chair, would be my vote.
A comment?
Sure.
I feel like the T-bid as is currently formed, it's important that the chair be a hotel owner. So I think that pretty much means that it should be Sean or Steve.
It can't be the at-large seat. It has to be a hotel seat.
I mean, Charlie or Steve, exactly. Right. So I would support either Steve or Charlie being the chair, but that also means that one of you should be the vice chair. I guess Maggie could be the vice chair as well. I feel like Steve is extremely professional. I love the way that every time we ask him to lead, he's constantly makes the comment that he wasn't prepared for that. And I think that's a quality. I like that someone expects to be told that they're going to be in charge of something so that they can be prepared. I really find that as a really important quality for me. So I would love to see Steve be the chair, but I think Charlie's been doing a great job. Charlie could finish the year as the chair, and then Steve could maybe be the chair next year if he's still on the board. I would support either of you.
Do we do both in the same nom?
Well, obviously Ken Clark's not here, so we should be nominating him.
I make a motion to nominate Charlie as the chair, and I'll make a second motion. Oh, I should wait for the first motion?
I second that.
Charlie, you get to say we vote, right?
Call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
I make a second motion to have Steve be the vice chair.
Did you really mean
I don't know if I could vote or not.
I make a second motion to nominate Steve as the vice chair.
Second.
Calling for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And thank you. All right. Now that we've gotten that taken care of, very fun, we will declare future items. And I would like Lori to denote those to put them on the next agenda. Future items, guys?
Depends on how long the list of items are to see if we can actually return with all of them, but so.
Is it possible to put the exclusion of one of our board members as a future item for us to discuss? Or is that really got to go back to the city?
I think it's fine for this board to discuss that, but it's a legality.
We can't really do much
It's a legality
other than
thing
make a
slash
recommendation
policy.
that policy
Yeah.
should be changed.
I think we all understand where this board stands on that issue, and it has been unfortunate at this point. Hopefully there'll be a good discussion with the subcommittee that's doing the advisory guidelines, but some of this is guided by law, so we'll see where that shakes out.
Any future items you all want to bring up?
I have a future item. I would like a further discussion and explanation from Jen on how we could possibly pay for a full-time staff member without increasing cost for the city. How can we pull money from existing money and do that? To do the entire $44,000 or a portion of that to make it an easier sale to Scott?
I'm fine with that, Taylor. I would need to bring it back in June because May we are totally booked with our RFP review.
I'm fine with June.
Okay.
I would also like to make sure that our group here takes their time and goes through those RFPs for the marketing. Some very interesting things, some really great companies have spent a lot of time putting these things together, and now's our time to really dig in and make the right choice.
Are there any other future agenda items?
Yep. This is not pressing, but I think that there might be an opportunity to revise the TBID annual calendar and when things happen in a way that better lines with council meetings, maybe more appropriate time for stakeholders meetings and annual reporting, just so that we have enough lead time as a board to make a decision in advance of when we're recommending the thing. So that goes on a monthly basis, but more big picture, I'd say, so we can just kind of get that Excel spreadsheet and line up the bar graphs and the bars in a way that makes the most sense. Again, not pressing, but I think would add a lot. And the other item, and I'd be happy to kind of lead the charge on this. I do think that there's room for us to write that open letter to advisory boards in the City of Morro Bay, as well as City of Morro Bay staff that reminds them of the importance of tourism to Morro Bay. And so if we need an agenda item to have a 5 or 10 minute brainstorm about what might be included in that one-page letter, I think that might be worth our time.
I think it's always great to bring to the attention of everybody what great works we do in tourism, how much money we bring to the coffers, and how our regular day-to-day business really keeps the city rocking, and we bring in the money to keep things going. So I have consensus there for me.
And to expand that a little bit, Sean, I think I can include what I currently do to keep them knowledgeable about how we benefit them. I'll do a whole kind of schematic for you guys.
For the purpose of the meeting, I don't know if we necessarily would need a full-blown report or anything. Like, I wouldn't spend that much time. It's just more ad hoc.
One little thing, I would like to talk about in the future what possibilities are for alternative convention centers sort of usage, such as like the movie theater. Like, is that a possibility to use as a convention center sort of usage? Or what is the plan with the DeStacio's building, former DeStacio's building? These kind of things we need to talk about. Like, is there going to be a building at the wastewater treatment plant that we could use? I mean, what's on the table here?
And that also ties in with the request earlier to bring back an overview of all the rentable space.
Yeah, they're definitely, I think about Bank of America, and I'm like, how can that be used? Or Flippo's, how can that old structure be used? But I agree, we need to figure some places to throw some events. Any other comments? Any other future?
With that last one, could you also include the possibilities, like what are the tent kind of things we could do?
Seeing no future items, I'm going to call this meeting at 11:50, and thank you all for your attendance, and thank you. See you guys later. Bye,